So hey anime fans. The series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with My Hero Academia. So let's start the series. The Shattered Sky. The sky was bleeding orange, a sunset torn apart by smoke and screams. One moment, Naruto Uzumaki was standing on the Hokage monument, the wind of Konoha cool and familiar against his cheeks, a quiet pride swelling in his chest as he looked over his village. The next, a tearing sensation, a kaleidoscope of swirling, sickening color that felt like being pulled through a keyhole, bones grinding, chakra screaming in protest. Then impact. Not the soft grass of the monument's peak, but unyielding, greasy asphalt. The smell hit him first, acrid smoke, spilled chemicals, ozone, and underneath it all, the coppery tang of blood. Not the familiar blood and iron scent of a shinobi battlefield, but something sharper, more industrial. Sound exploded around him. Not the organized chaos of a village under attack, but a frenzied, panic symphony. Sirens wailed from multiple directions, a dissonant, screaming choir. Human screams, high-pitched, raw with terror, cut through the din. The cacophony of collapsing masonry, shattering glass, and the deep, percussive whump of explosions that felt wrong, too concussive, not fueled by explosive tags but by something else. Naruto pushed himself up, his palms scraping on grit. His head pounded, a migraine spike driven behind his eyes. Where? He was in an alley, but unlike any in Konoha. The buildings were giants, glass and steel monoliths that scraped a sky choked with black plumes. A massive video screen on a distant tower flickered, showing a woman in a sleek uniform speaking rapidly, graphics flashing behind her. Villain rampage in the Shizuoka ward. Multiple quirks confirmed. Civilians evacuate. The language was close to his own, but the accent was strange, the words slightly off. He understood it, but it felt like listening through water. Quirks? Villains? His mind, a seasoned tactician's mind, recoiled. This wasn't a hidden village. This was a city, but one under a kind of assault he'd never witnessed. It was too open, too blatant. Where were the ANBU? The barrier teams? A child's sob, choked and terrified, sliced through his spiraling thoughts. Instinct overrode confusion. Naruto was moving before his thoughts could catch up, a blur of orange and black shooting from the alley's mouth onto the main street. Chaos. Pure, unfiltered chaos. People ran in every direction, a river of panic. Heroes, they had to be heroes, fought in the epicenter. A man made of what looked like living rock traded blows with a villain whose arms were giant, serrated crab claws. Another hero, a woman with a bestial mutation, was trying to shepherd civilians away from a crater in the middle of the road. In the sky, a figure with jet-propelled legs zipped past, firing glowing energy bolts at a villain who could stretch and distort like taffy. Naruto's senses, honed by decades of war, took in the battlefield in a millisecond. The quirks were bizarre. No hand signs, no discernible chakra networks he could sense in the usual way. The energy signatures were loud, blaring, unique to each individual, burning like a personal flare. It was overwhelming, a discordant orchestra of power. But his eyes locked onto the source of the sob. A little girl, no older than 5, was pinned under a slab of collapsed concrete facade from a boutique. Her mother was yanking at her arm, screaming, but the rubble was too heavy. 20 yards behind them, the crab-claw villain backhanded the rock hero, sending him crashing into a bus stop. The villain's attention swiveled, his compound eyes glinting. He saw the easy targets. Fresh meat. The villain gurgled, his voice a wet click. He charged, claws raised to shear. A strong desire, white-hot and absolute, protect. Naruto didn't think. He didn't denounce himself. He moved. Chakra flooded his legs. He wasn't the fastest shinobi for nothing. To the panicked civilians and the preoccupied heroes, he was a sudden orange streak, a afterimage against the devastation. He crossed the distance in the space between heartbeats. He didn't attack the villain. Not yet. First, the civilians. He slid to a stop between the girl and the oncoming claws. Get back! He barked at the mother, his voice carrying the undeniable command of a Hokage. The woman stumbled away, eyes wide at this sudden, bizarre apparition. Naruto's hands found the edge of the concrete slab. It was massive, easily several tons. For a normal man, or even most of these heroes, it would require a strength-enhancing quirk or machinery. For the 7th Hokage, it required a thought. He flared his chakra. A dangerous obstacle, exposure. But there was no choice. He heaved. Muscles corded, chakra enhancing his physical strength to impossible levels. The slab groaned, then lifted, just enough. Pull her! He shouted. The mother scrambled, yanking her daughter free as the girl cried out in pain, a broken leg, likely. The moment the child was clear, Naruto let the slab drop with a ground-shaking thud. The crab claw villain was upon him. Interfering Nat! The left claw, larger than Naruto's torso, scissored down in a blow meant to bisect. A risky decision, reveals speed and taijutsu. Naruto didn't dodge backwards. He flowed inside the villain's reach, the movement so fluid it defied physics. The claw whistled past his back, missing by millimeters. To Naruto, those millimeters were a canyon. His elbow, reinforced with a subtle pulse of chakra, slammed into the villain's underarm joint, a chink in the chitinous armor. There was a sickening crack. The villain howled, his claw going limp. Naruto didn't pause. A spin, a leg sweep that took the villain's feet out from under him. The giant crashed to the asphalt, dazed. Naruto placed a foot on his thorax, not with crushing force, but with unshakable finality. He looked down, his blue eyes no longer confused, but sharp and cold as a winter sky. "Stay down," he said, his voice low. It wasn't a request. Silence bloomed in a small circle around him. The immediate fighting had paused. The rock hero was pushing himself up, staring. The beast heroine had frozen, her muzzle agati. Civilians peering from behind overturned cars gaped. Who was this? No costume, just an odd orange jacket and pants. No visible quirk, he hadn't glowed, hadn't changed form. He just moved, and lifted, and dismantled. A new voice, amplified and authoritative, cut through the momentary quiet. "Unidentified individual! Step away from the villain and keep your hands where I can see them!" Naruto turned. Hovering in the air was a hero in a sleek, white armor, a visor covering his face. A symbol on his chest, a wing or a hand, Naruto couldn't tell. The hero's hands were raised, palms glowing with a dangerous, building light. Around him, 3 other heroes touched down, their stances hostile, their quirks visibly primed. They weren't looking at the other villains. They were looking at him. A consequence that escalates tension, he saved them. Now, they see him as a threat. The rock hero stood, holding his side. "Hold on, Jet! He just took down Clawjammer. He helped. He possesses an unregistered and highly powerful quirk used in a combat zone." The armored hero, Jet, snapped, his voice buzzing through the speaker. "He is a potential hostile. Standard protocol. Stand down, Stonewall." Naruto felt a familiar, cold anger stir. After everything, he was being treated like the threat? He saw the fear in the hovering hero's posture, the suspicion in the other's eyes. They didn't see a protector. They saw an unknown variable. A disruptor. He slowly lifted his hands, but not in surrender. In a placating gesture. "I'm not your enemy," he said, forcing calm into his voice. "People were hurt. I helped. Your cooperation will be determined at the scene," Jet stated. "A quirk suppression team is en route. Do not attempt to use your ability again." Quirk suppression. The words were ice in his veins. They wanted to cage his chakra. His lifeblood. His very soul. The little girl he'd saved was crying in her mother's arms. The mother looked from Naruto to the aiming heroes, her face a mask of confusion and dawning fear of him now, too. Ideological clash, his instinct to protect versus their system of control. Naruto's jaw tightened. He was the Hokage. A leader who fought for every single person. He would not be branded a criminal for saving a life. He would not let them chain him. He made a decision. He looked the flying hero dead in the visor. "I'm sorry," Naruto said, and he meant it. "But I can't do that. I have to find out where I am. And I won't let you lock me up for helping." The heroes tensed. The glowing in Jet's palms intensified. "Take him!" Micro cliffhanger, 4 quirks fired at once, a beam of light, a wave of concussive sound, binding tendrils of hardened air, and a net of crackling energy. Naruto exploded into motion. But not away. Up. He kicked off the air itself, a chakra-enhanced leap that defied gravity, shooting vertically between the projectiles. He sailed past the stunned Jet, higher than the surrounding buildings, a flash of orange against the smoky sky. Gaspies from below. "He can fly?" No quirk activation was visible. He landed on a rooftop, his breath steady, his heart a drum of war. He looked down at the shrinking scene of carnage and order. The heroes were scrambling, pointing, communicating frantically into their devices. An alarm of a new, keening frequency began to blare across the district. Chapter 2: The Unseen Variable. Shadows didn't just creep. They lunged. They came from Mirage's outstretched hand, yes, but also from the air vents, from the cracks in the rooftop tar, from the very edges of Naruto's own silhouette cast by the distant emergency lights. They moved with sentient hunger, not like the controlled darkness of a shadow imitation jutsu, but something more primal, more invasive. It wasn't chakra-based. It felt like the world itself was turning against him, rejecting his presence. Naruto's instinct screamed. He couldn't just dodge, he had to erase the medium. A strong desire, escape, assess, survive. He couldn't fight a society. Not yet. Not until he understood the rules of this bizarre game. He didn't leap back. He exploded forward, directly at Mirage. It was the last move she expected, a head-on charge against an unknown, intangible quirk. Her composure flickered for a microsecond, the swirling shadows pausing in their encirclement. That was all he needed. 3 feet from impact, he vanished. A body flicker, not the full, chakra-burning speed he could muster, but enough to become a blur. He reappeared behind her, his hand already forming a single seal at his side. A risky decision, use ninjutsu. Risk everything. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. The puff of smoke was deafeningly loud in the quiet she had created. Not 1, not 2, but 10 Narutos materialized in a ring around Mirage. They didn't roar. They didn't posture. They just moved, a silent, coordinated orange swarm, half charging her, half scattering towards the rooftop's edge. Mirage's breath hitched. Multiplicative type. No signature. Her shadows lashed out, striking 2 clones. They vanished in identical puffs of smoke. Not human. Not even biomass. What is this? Her analytical mind, her greatest weapon, short-circuited for a critical beat. The real Naruto was already gone. He'd used the clones as the ultimate distraction, leaping off the opposite side of the building, not down into the lit, hero-crawling streets, but across a narrower gap into the darker, industrial labyrinth of the city's underbelly. He ran on a vertical wall, chakra adhering his feet to the rusting metal, before flipping onto a lower rooftop stacked with pipes and machinery. He became a whisper, a ghost in orange, dampening his chakra signature to the barest ember. Behind him, on the first rooftop, the last clone dissipated under a shadowy spear. Mirage stood alone, her quirk retracting into a confused, simmering aura around her. She tapped a communicator on her wrist. Target designation, orange. Quirk unknown. Mimics duplication, superhuman physical enhancement, possibly wall crawling. No standard energy emission. He is clean. Invisible to sensory types. Proceed with extreme prejudice. He is a complete unknown. She looked out over the city, her visor reflecting the distant flames. A smile, thin and intrigued, touched her lips. Find him. The underbelly of the city was a world away from the glossy towers and wide boulevards. Here, the buildings were squat, stained with grime and industrial runoff. The air smelled of rust, stale oil, and decay. It reminded Naruto of the darker corners of the Land of Waves, a place of forgotten people. He moved silently, a shadow among shadows, his senses stretched to their limits. He heard the distant wail of a new kind of siren, higher, more urgent. He saw spotlights from hovering vehicles comb the higher rooftops. They were hunting him. For saving a life. The cold anger in his gut hardened into a resolve. This world is sick. The thought was clear, brutal. Heroes who pointed weapons at those who helped. A system so rigid it saw a protector as a threat first. What kind of place had he fallen into? A dangerous obstacle, his own body, his own needs. A deep, gnawing hunger cramped his stomach. Thirst sandpapered his throat. The dimensional jump had ripped more than just space, it had drained his reserves. He needed food, water, and most critically, information. He was fighting blind. He found a vantage point, a broken skylight on a derelict warehouse overlooking a narrow, neon-lit street below. A few dingy bars and all-night convenience stores cast pools of sickly light. This was a place that slept with one eye open. His eyes, sharp as a hawk's, tracked the flow of people. Most hurried, heads down. Then he saw a group that stood out. 3 figures, younger, their postures a mix of wariness and forced confidence. 2 boys and a girl. They weren't in full hero costumes, but their clothing had a distinct, purposeful design, reinforced jackets, sturdy boots, utility belts. Students? Interns? One boy had wild, spiky blonde hair and a permanent, fierce scowl. He walked with his hands in his pockets, shoulders hunched as if against the world. The other boy was taller, with half-white, half-red hair split down the middle, his expression stoic, almost icy. The girl had rich brown hair tied in a high ponytail, her large eyes constantly scanning, assessing. They were talking, their voices carried up to him in fragments by a gust of wind. A complete mess. Backdraft's team is still containing the fires. The girl's voice. TCH. Those extra strength types are all brawn, no brains. Let the pros handle the cleanup. The blonde. We were instructed to patrol the perimeter for stragglers, Bakugo. The dual-haired boy, voice calm. Not critique the response. Shut it, icy hot. I'm just saying the action's over. This is busy work. Bakugo. Icy hot. Interns. Pros. The words slotted into place. A hero academy. These were student soldiers. Children being groomed for that chaotic, rule-bound battlefield. Naruto's heart ached. They were so young. Too young for the hardened look in the dual-haired boy's eyes, the explosive anger in the blonde's, Bakugo's, posture. As he watched, the situation below shifted. A man, large and unsteady, stumbled out of a bar alley, blocking the student's path. He was muttering, his quirk evident, his skin had a metallic, bronze sheen. Drunk and angry. Hey, hey! Little hero brats! The man slurred, puffing out his chest. Think you're tough, walking through my neighborhood? The student stopped. Bakugo's hands came out of his pockets, tiny sparks popping in his palms. Move it, old-timer! You're in our way. Bakugo, don't escalate, the brown-haired girl said, stepping slightly forward. Sir, we're just on patrol. No trouble intended. Trouble? The drunk man roared, his quirk activating further, his body swelling slightly, becoming more metallic. I'll show you trouble. You think your fancy licenses let you look down on us? He charged. It was clumsy, telegraphed. But it was an attack. The dual-haired boy, Todoroki, Naruto would learn, moved. A smooth step forward, his right foot sliding out. A glacier of ice, beautiful and terrifying, erupted from the ground, not to spear the man, but to encase his legs up to the knees, freezing him in place. The precision was impressive. Restrained, Todoroki stated, his breath frosting the air. But Bakugo wasn't satisfied. He attacked a hero. He gets subdued. He lunged, his hand swinging not with a full explosion, but with a crackling, concussive pop aimed at the immobilized man's chest, a warning shot that would bruise ribs and instill fear. A risky decision, intervene in a heroic arrest. Naruto moved. He dropped from the skylight, a 3-story fall he landed from in a silent crouch. He was a streak between Bakugo and the drunk man. His hand came up, not to strike Bakugo, but to catch his swinging wrist. Thwop. The sound was clean, final. Bakugo's momentum died. The tiny explosion died in his palm, snuffed out. He stared, shock and instant, volcanic fury contorting his features. He was caught. By someone who hadn't even been there a second ago. Naruto held his wrist, his grip like iron. He looked past Bakugo's rage, into his wide, furious eyes. He was already stopped, Naruto said, his voice low but carrying. Your attack was unnecessary. It was just cruelty. The street froze. Todoroki's eyes gleamed. The girl, Yaoyorozu, gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. The drunk man, sobering rapidly in his icy prison, whimpered. Bakugo's other hand sparked violently. Who the hell are you? He screamed, yanking his captured wrist. Naruto let him go, taking a smooth step back, his stance relaxed but ready. You, Todoroki said, his mismatched eyes wide. Ice crept up his right arm instinctively. You're the one from the incident report. The unregistered quirk user from the Shizuoka attack. Yaoyorozu's eyes darted, analyzing. No visible support gear. The orange jacket, it matches the description. Bakugo, don't! He's considered highly dangerous. But Bakugo was beyond listening. The humiliation of being stopped, of being judged, by this ragged-looking stranger burned worse than any injury. Dangerous? Good! He snarled. I'll bring you in myself. He blasted forward, using his quirk for propulsion, a right hook aimed at Naruto's face with an explosion at the point of impact. Naruto didn't use chakra. He didn't need to. He read the movement, the overcommitment born of rage. He swayed his head to the side. The explosion roared past his ear, the heat searing, the sound deafening in the confined street. Naruto's own hand shot up, palm open, and slapped Bakugo's extended arm down and away, breaking his balance. At the same moment, Naruto's foot hooked around Bakugo's ankle. It was a simple, fundamental judo move, applied with shinobi precision. Bakugo crashed to the wet asphalt with a grunt of pure, undiluted shock. Silence, broken only by the crackle of melting ice and Bakugo's ragged, furious breaths. Naruto looked down at him, then at Todoroki and Yaoyorozu. I don't want to fight you. You're kids. We are UA high school students, Todoroki said, his voice icy. A larger glacier began to form at his feet. And you are a wanted individual. You will be detained. His logic was cold, absolute. The system had spoken. He was its agent. Yaoyorozu's skin glowed. From her forearm, a solid steel bow staff began to create itself, pushing out of her skin. She took a defensive stance, her eyes conflicted but resolved. Please surrender. You are outnumbered. Naruto looked at them, the furious prodigy on the ground, the ice prince born of a rigid world, the brilliant creator bound by duty. Children, trained to see the world in black and white, registered and unregistered, hero and villain. He gave a sad, weary smile that didn't reach his eyes. It was the smile of a Hokage who had seen too many good soldiers lost to bad systems. "You've been taught to follow orders. To see rules as walls," Naruto said. He took a slow step back. "I was taught that rules are there to protect people. And when they fail to do that, you protect people first." Bakugo pushed himself up, his palms glowing with a dangerous, building light. "Shut up! You don't know anything!" "Maybe not," Naruto admitted. "But I know a bully when I see one. And I know a child when I see one. And you," he said, his gaze sweeping over all three, "are being used by a world that sent armed men to arrest someone for pulling a little girl from rubble." The words hung in the air, a poisoned dart aimed at the heart of their certainty. Yaoyorozu flinched. Todoroki's eyes faltered for a second. Bakugo launched himself again, a dual explosion propelling him like a missile. AP shot! A consequence that escalates danger, he challenged their worldview. Now, they must crush him to defend it. Naruto didn't dodge this time. He couldn't without revealing more. Instead, he crossed his arms in front of his face, taking the brunt of the concentrated blast. It was hot, it was concussive, it hurt. It shoved him back, skidding on the asphalt, his jacket sleeves smoldering. He felt the skin on his forearms redden and blister. So this is a quirk. Powerful. Direct. Todoroki seized the opening. A wave of ice, not a restraining glacier but a jagged spear, shot across the ground towards Naruto's feet. Naruto jumped, but Yaoyorozu was ready. She threw the completed bow staff like a javelin, aiming not for him, but for his landing spot. It was smart. Tactical. He was cornered. In midair. 3 students, 3 powerful, unfamiliar abilities. He made a choice. As he fell, his hands formed a single, familiar seal. Kawarimi no Jutsu! He switched places with the discarded metal trash can lid lying in a shadow doorway. Thunk. The ice spear impaled the lid. The bow staff clattered against it. Naruto reappeared crouched on the rooftop ledge above them. He was breathing heavier now. Not from exertion, but from the sheer, overwhelming strangeness of it all. The substitution had cost chakra he couldn't afford to waste. The 3 students stared, utterly bewildered. One moment he was there. The next, a trash can lid. No blur of speed. No teleportation glow. Just a swap with an inanimate object. What kind of quirk is that?" Yaoyorozu whispered, her creation quirk stuttering in confusion. Bakugo's fury was momentarily stunned into silence. Todoroki's eyes narrowed. "It defies physics. It defies categorization." Naruto looked down at them, at their young, confused faces. He saw not enemies, but victims of a broken ideology. "You asked who I am," he said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries, of a village on his back. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I am a shinobi. And I am not from your world." He dropped a small, spherical object from his pocket, a basic smoke bomb, standard shinobi kit. It hit the street and erupted in a thick gray cloud. By the time Bakugo's explosions cleared the air, the rooftop was empty. But he had left something behind. More than confusion. More than tactical data. He had planted a seed of doubt. In the swirling smoke, Todoroki stared at the spot where the man had vanished. "A shinobi," he murmured. The word felt old. Forbidden. Bakugo clenched his singed, still stinging fists, his pride in tatters. "I'll find you," he vowed to the empty air, but the rage was now mixed with annoying, unwanted curiosity. Yaoyorozu created a small notebook and began sketching frantically, trying to capture the impossible physics of the substitution. A quirk that allows transposition with objects, the energy requirement alone, it's not possible. Unless. Chapter 3, The Hokage's Shadow. Pain was an old companion. It whispered up Naruto's arms, a sharp, insistent song of blistered skin and deep-throbbing bruises where Bakugo's explosions had connected. It was a clean pain, a reminder of a physical enemy. It was the other ache that was worse, the hollow, disoriented feeling behind his ribs. "Not from your world." The words echoed in the silence of the grimy rooftop. He was a ghost here. A splinter of one reality lodged in the flesh of another. He needed to heal. He needed to think. Crouching behind a rusted ventilation unit, he focused inward. A faint, golden glow, invisible to the naked eye, shimmered over the burns on his forearms. The Ninetales chakra, a mere trickle, coaxed the cells to knit, soothed the inflammation. It wasn't instant regeneration, not without draining precious reserves, but it took the edge from searing agony to a manageable throb. The fox was quiet, a brooding, watchful presence in the back of his mind, equally wary of this alien energy landscape. A strong desire, find a foothold. Understand the power structure. Not just of heroes, but of everything hidden beneath. The student Bakugo had been a wildfire of explosive pride. The other, Todoroki, was a glacier of cold duty. They were two sides of the same coin, minted by this hero society. But societies, Naruto knew from brutal experience, were like great trees. What you saw above ground, the gleaming leaves of heroes, the rigid branches of law, was only half the story. The real strength, the rot, the deep nourishment, was all in the roots, in the dark soil. He needed to find the roots. He dropped from the rooftop into a narrow alley that smelled of stale urine and wet concrete. The neon from the main street didn't penetrate here. It was a world of echoes, distant sirens still hunting him, the drip of a broken pipe, the scuttle of something in the shadows. A new sound. Not a scuttle. A rhythm. Deliberate, unhurried footsteps. Naruto melted back against the wall, his chakra dampened to nothing, his breathing a silent ghost of air. Two figures rounded the far corner. They weren't heroes. Their attire was too mismatched, too functional, lacking the sleek, branded uniformity. A man and a woman. The man was large, with thick, trunk-like arms exposed by a sleeveless vest, his skin textured like rough bark. The woman was slender, her hair a shock of electric blue, her eyes covered by goggles with cracked lenses. They moved with a cautious, predatory grace that had nothing to do with heroics and everything to do with survival. Signal was definitely around here, the woman murmured, her voice staticky, as if filtered through a broken radio. A spike of unknown energy. Not a quirk signature. Clean. Then gone. The commission's hounds are buzzing everywhere. The tree man grunted, his voice like rocks grinding. They want this orange bad. Mirage herself is leading the hunt. They're scared, the woman said, a hint of glee in her distorted tone. Something that doesn't fit the little boxes. A power they can't register, can't control. It's beautiful. Naruto listened, every muscle coiled. They were talking about him. But they weren't with the commission. They were interested observers. Opportunists. A dangerous obstacle, the unknown underworld. A potential trap. The woman stopped, her head tilting. Her goggles whirred faintly. Residual thermal, there. She turned, not towards Naruto's hiding spot, but towards a pile of sodden cardboard boxes 10 feet away. She raised a hand, and the air around it crackled with visible, arcing electricity. Come out. We're not with the shiny hero brigade. We just want to talk to the man who made them soil their spandex. A gamble. They'd sensed something, but not him. They were probing. Naruto made a decision. Not to flee, but to control the encounter. If these were the roots, he needed to see them. He didn't step from the shadows. He appeared from them. One moment, the space beside the dripping pipe was empty. The next, Naruto was leaning against the wall there, arms crossed over his still smoldering jacket, his blue eyes catching a sliver of distant light. He'd used a simple transformation and movement, a genin-level combination, but in this world of flaring quirks, it was silent witchcraft. Both figures jerked back, the woman's electrical charge surging with a loud crackle. The tree man's arms thickened, bark sprouting. Relax, Naruto said, his voice calm, flat. You wanted to talk. So talk. The woman recovered first, a slow smile spreading across her face. She lowered her hand, but the charge didn't fully dissipate. Slippery. And quiet. I like it. Name's Volt. This is Oak. We're free agents. Advocates for a less regulated approach to personal power. You mean villains? Naruto stated, no judgment in his tone, just assessment. Oak snorted. Villain is a label the powerful give to the inconvenient. We prefer liberated. He eyed Naruto's burns. Ran into some heroic opposition, I see. Yui brats, by the look of that blast pattern. Nasty. They have their rules, Naruto said. Rules that would have you locked in a lab, dissected to find out how your knockwork works. Bolt hissed, genuine anger in her staticky voice. They can't stand what they don't understand. They want every power in a neat little file, every person with a barcode. Your very existence is a threat to their whole system. The words resonated with the cold anger in Naruto's gut. He'd felt it, the immediate hostility, the demand for submission. Why seek me out? Naruto asked. Because you're a symbol, Volt said, stepping closer, her goggles reflecting his impassive face. A walking, talking rebuttal to their control. You fought back. You showed their precious students that their rulebook is paper against real will. There are people, powerful people, who would see that symbol flourish. Who could offer you shelter, resources, answers about where you might be. The offer hung in the damp air. It was a siren song. Shelter. Answers. An alliance against the forces hunting him. A risky decision, play along. Infiltrate. Naruto was a shinobi. Infiltration was in his blood. He let a sliver of desperation show, a slight slump in his shoulders, a flicker of pain across his face. It wasn't entirely an act. Answers sound good, he said, his voice softer. I just need a place to breathe. To figure this out. Oak and Volt exchanged a look. The hook was set. Follow us, Oak rumbled. And keep that quiet trick of yours ready. The Commission's nets are wide. They led him deeper, into a labyrinth of service tunnels and abandoned sub-basements that ran like arteries beneath the city. It was another world, a mirror version of the gleaming metropolis above, damp, cold, lit by flickering illegal power taps and bioluminescent fungal growths cultivated by some forgotten quirk. They passed others, people with visible mutations hidden away, individuals whose quirks were too disturbing or unstable for the surface world. They looked at Naruto with curiosity, with hope, with suspicion. He was brought to a chamber that had once been a bank vault. Now, it was a command center of sorts. Screens showed news feeds, police bands, hero comms chatter, all monitored. A man sat at the central console, his back to them. He was lean, dressed in simple, dark clothes, his hair a shock of white. Found him, Skeptic, Bolt announced. The man, Skeptic, swiveled in his chair. His eyes were sharp, intelligent, devoid of the fanatical gleam Naruto had expected. He looked like a scholar or a scientist. He looked Naruto up and down, his gaze analytical, cold. Naruto Uzumaki, Skeptic said. His voice was dry, precise. Or the entity claiming that identity. You've caused quite the data anomaly. You have information on me, Naruto said, not a question. We have information on everything, Skeptic corrected. He gestured to the screens. The Hero Commission is a blunt instrument. They see a threat, they seek to crush it. We understand. Your arrival created a localized space-time distortion measurable by our instruments. The energy you wield, you call it chakra, from the intercepted communication with the students, it is an internal, biological energy system completely separate from the quirk factor. It is, theoretically, a power available to all humanity, had our evolution not been hijacked by the external quirk phenomenon. Naruto felt a chill that had nothing to do with the damp. This man understood too much, too quickly. You're not just free agents, Naruto stated. Skeptic smiled, a thin, bloodless line. We are the Meta Liberation Army. We believe in the absolute freedom of personal power. The strong should lead, unshackled by the weak who make rules out of fear. Quirks are the next stage of human evolution, but society has regressed, caging that evolution. Your chakra, it's something else. A parallel path. A proof that there are forms of strength beyond their comprehension and control. He stood, walking closer. Join us. Not as a foot soldier. As a symbol. The living proof that their system is a lie. With your abilities and our network, we can tear it down. Create a world where power is the only truth. The ideology unfolded before Naruto, cold, logical, and utterly vile. It was the philosophy of pain, of Madara, dressed in new words. The strong over the weak. Might making right. It was everything he had spent his life fighting against. A consequence that escalates tension. He is now in the lion's den, surrounded by true believers who see him as their messiah. He had to be careful. One wrong move, and this shelter would become a prison far worse than any commissioned cell. A world without false heroes, Naruto said slowly, as if considering. He let his gaze wander over the screen showing the chaotic hero response to his earlier actions. I've seen their hypocrisy firsthand. They protect order, not people. Skeptic's eyes gleamed. Exactly. You see the truth. Rest here. Heal. We will bring you data, context. You will understand this world, and then, you will help us remake it. Naruto was given a small, clean alcove off the main vault. It was sparse, but it was safe. For now. As the heavy door shut, he heard the distinct click of a lock engaging. A subtle one, but his ears caught it. He sat on the cot, head in his hands. The weight of his situation pressed down. He was a Hokage with no village. A protector surrounded by those who wanted to use protection as a weapon. The Meta Liberation Army. They were the dark roots of this society, festering with a creed of tyranny. He couldn't join them. But he couldn't simply run. They had technology, intelligence. They might even have theories on how to send him home. And they were a threat, not just to him, but to everyone in this world who believed in something gentler, something like the will of fire. A soft tap at the door, not the lock disengaging, but a pattern against the metal. It was Volt. Hey! Her voice came through, hushed. I brought you a first aid kit. For the burns. A small panel slid open at the bottom of the door, and a kit was pushed through. Thanks, Naruto said. Don't thank me. Her voice was lower, the static gone, revealing a younger, more hesitant tone. Just be careful with Skeptic. He sees people as data points. Tools. Your value is your symbolism. Don't forget that. The panel slid shut. Naruto looked at the kit. A small kindness, or another layer of the trap? In this world of black and white heroes and pitch black liberators, where did a simple act of decency fit? He lay back, staring at the cold metal ceiling. He was a disruptor. An anomaly. And now, two powerful, opposing systems were moving to claim or destroy him. The heroes wanted to erase him to maintain their order. The army wanted to worship him to fuel their revolution. Chapter 4, Midnight Extract. Time in the vault had no texture. The only light bled from a single, recessed LED strip, casting a sterile, surgical glow. Naruto sat cross-legged on the cot, not meditating, but listening. His chakra, fine as spider silk, was woven through the room, not an active sensor net, but a passive web attuned to vibration, to the subtle shifts in the air pressure from the ventilation, to the distant, subaudible hum of Skeptic's machines. He'd been a prisoner in nicer places. But the lock on the door was the least of his cages. The real prison was the ideology that surrounded him, the cold, calculating hope in Skeptic's eyes. He was a specimen, a symbol, a key. They wanted to turn his very existence into a weapon against the world above. What would you do, old man? He thought, not for the first time, picturing the stern, lined face of the third Hokage. Or you, Kakashi-sensei? Infiltrate and sabotage? Escape and go to ground? He was a Hokage. His duty was to protect, but who in this fractured world was his to protect? The civilians above, living in their gilded cage of hero rules? The lost souls down here in the dark, twisted by a creed of strength? The Nine-Tails stirred, a low growl in the mental landscape. They all reek of ambition and fear. The blonde brat upstairs with his explosions, the icy half-and-half, the lightning girl with her static, and now these rude dwellers. This world has no balance. Only poles pushing against each other, with weaklings in the middle. We're in the middle now, Naruto thought back. Then we are targets, Kurama grumbled. Stop thinking like a leader with no people. Think like a cornered fox. Bite the hand that tries to leash you, then run. Simple. Primal. For a moment, Naruto envied the beast. That's when the web of chakra trembled. It wasn't the predictable, heavy tread of oak. Nor the crackle-static approach of Volt. It was a series of micro-vibrations through the bedrock and concrete, precise, evenly spaced, and approaching fast. Not from the main tunnel. From above. Drilling. Then a faint, high-pitched whine, a thermal lance cutting through reinforced material. Silence for 3 heartbeats. Then the softest scuff of boots on metal. A strong desire identified the threat. Is it the army turning on him? Or the heroes finding him? He didn't move from the cot. He closed his eyes, feigning sleep, his breathing deep and even. Every other sense was hyper-alive. The lock on his door hissed, not with a key, but with a sizzle of acid or energy. It dissolved. The door swung inward without a sound. 3 figures entered. They moved like ghosts, their forms clad in matte black, form-fitting armor that drank the light. No insignia. No identifying marks. Their faces were covered by smooth, full-head helmets with dark visors. They fanned out with practiced, lethal efficiency, one covering the door, one sweeping the corners of the small room with a scanner on his wrist, the central figure approaching the cot. Rescue team? Or assassination squad? The central figure stopped a foot away. A voice, filtered and genderless, emerged from the helmet. Naruto Uzumaki. We are here to extract you from Meta Liberation Army custody. Do not resist. Comply, and you will not be harmed. The words were right. The tone was all wrong. It was the cold, procedural voice of a soldier retrieving an asset. Not saving a person. Naruto opened his eyes, meeting his own reflection in the dark visor. Extract me to where? To a secure location for debriefing. The Hero Public Safety Commission has deemed you a person of interest requiring protection. Protection. The same word Skeptic had used. It always meant a cage. And if I say no? Naruto asked softly. The figure didn't move. Compliance is mandatory. The alternative is containment by force. The terrorist cell holding you is scheduled for a full spectrum suppression strike in T-4 minutes. You do not want to be here when it arrives. A chill, colder than Todoroki's ice, shot down Naruto's spine. They weren't just extracting him. They were using his presence as a beacon to wipe out the army cell. They'd known where he was and let him sit here as bait. A risky decision, forced their hand. see their true intent. He sat up slowly. You let them take me? So you could kill them all? And you call that protection? No answer. The scanner on the wrist of the second figure beeped. Elevated bioreadings. Adrenaline spike. He's not complying. The central figure's hand moved to a device on its belt. Regrettable. Initiate tranquilizer protocol. A dart, smaller than a saban, shot from a nozzle on the figure's wrist with a pneumatic hiss. Naruto's head moved a fraction. The dart buried itself in the cot where his neck had been. In the same motion, he was off the cot, not a blur of speed, but a fluid, unstoppable rise that placed him inside the central figure's guard. His hand shot up, not to strike, but to grab the edge of the helmet's visor. A dangerous obstacle, high-tech, unknown combatants. No quirk tells. The figure was fast, trained. A knife, its edge shimmering with a monomolecular glow, appeared in its hand, slashing horizontally at Naruto's ribs. The other two moved in perfect sync, the one by the door raising a pistol-like device, the scanner one drawing a compact shock baton. Naruto flowed under the knife's slash. His fingers found the seam of the helmet. Chakra, razor-thin and precise, flared for an instant, a scalpel instead of a hammer. There was a crack and a hiss of depressurization. He ripped the helmet free. Revealed underneath was Mirage. Her purple hair was plastered to her scalp with sweat, her sharp features set in a mask of professional detachment, but her eyes widened in a microsecond of shock at the speed, the impossible precision of the disarming. You! Naruto breathed. The moment of shock was all the others needed. The pistol fired, not a bullet, but a net of glowing orange energy that expanded midair. The shock baton crackled to life, thrust toward his back. Naruto dropped Mirage's helmet and pushed off her, using her body as a springboard to launch himself vertically. He kicked off the ceiling, flipping over the expanding net. He landed behind the scanner operative. It was close quarters. Too close for their ranged weapons. It was shinobi territory. He grabbed the operative's wrist holding the baton, twisted, and used the man's own momentum to slam him face first into the metal wall with a sickening crunch. The baton clattered to the floor. A sharp elbow to the back of the neck, chakra enhanced, and the man went down, stunned. The net gunner switched tactics, dropping the pistol and closing in with hand to hand. Mirage shook off her surprise, her hands coming up, the shadows in the room beginning to writhe at her command. But the calculus of the fight had just changed. A deep, shuddering boom echoed through the vault, a percussive wave that rattled the very teeth in Naruto's skull. Dust rained from the ceiling. The lights flickered wildly. The suppression strike. It wasn't in 4 minutes. It was now. And it was bigger, louder, more violent than a surgical strike. Skeptic's voice, laced with panic and fury, blared from hidden speakers. Breach in Sector 7. Thermal signatures indicate pro-hero endeavor. This is a full assault. All units repel. Protect the asset at all costs. Endeavor. The flaming hero from the news screens. He jumped the gun. A consequence that escalates tension, the fragile operation shatters. He is now caught between two simultaneous, hostile forces. Alarms, deafening and raw, shrieked through the complex. The sound of running feet, shouts, and the first roaring whoosh of flames echoed down the corridors. Mirage swore, a vicious, unfiltered word. That fool! He's compromised everything! She glared at Naruto, her professional calm shattered. This is your last chance. Come with us, or burn with them. Another explosion, closer this time. The vault door shook. The air began to heat rapidly, smelling of ozone and molten metal. Naruto looked at her, the hero who had used him as bait. He looked at the door, beyond which the Meta Liberation Army, his would-be captors, were fighting for their lives against a raging inferno. He thought of Volt's hesitant warning, of the lost, mutated faces in the tunnels. Neither side wanted to save him. They wanted to possess him. To use him. One side with cold logic, the other with purifying fire. The ceiling above the corridor outside glowed orange, then white. It melted, dripping molten slag. A figure wreathed in impossible, terrifying flames descended through the hole, his eyes scanning the chaos with merciless intent. Endeavor had arrived. His gaze locked onto Naruto through the open doorway. Unregistered. His voice boomed, cutting through the alarms. Surrender now and submit to quirk suppression. Mirage shouted. Endeavor, stand down! This is a commission extraction. Your extraction failed. Endeavor growled, a plume of fire erupting from his shoulder to incinerate an army member who charged him with a crystal quirk. I will handle this. Hell Spider! Tendrils of concentrated fire, like the legs of a blazing arachnid, shot from his body, not at Naruto, but at the structural supports of the vault entrance, sealing it, and Mirage's team, inside with Naruto. He was cutting off the commission, claiming the prize for himself. The temperature in the room spiked. The metal walls began to sing with heat. Mirage's shadow quirk faltered in the overwhelming light. Naruto stood in the center of the room, the blistering heat washing over him. The cot smoldered. The stunned operatives groaned. He had seconds. A choice. Be captured by the fiery hero, whose justice felt like annihilation. Or be extracted by the shadowy commission that saw people as data points. He looked at Mirage, at her furious, trapped face. He looked at the molten doorway where Endeavor's silhouette loomed, a bringer of ruin. A third path. Not a choice they offered. A Hokage's path. You both talk about protecting society, Naruto said, his voice calm, carrying through the roar of the flames. But all I see is you protecting your own power. Your own control. He brought his hands together in a single, familiar seal. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. This time, he didn't make 10. He made 50. The vault filled with orange-clad clones in a symphony of smoke. They didn't attack Mirage. They didn't charge Endeavor. They moved with a single, unified purpose. Some slammed into the melting doorway, their bodies taking the searing heat, buying milliseconds. Others grabbed the stunned commission operatives, including Mirage, and pulled them towards the far wall. A third group formed a barrier of bodies between the entrance and the rest of the room. The real Naruto was already at the back wall, his hands glowing with a blue, spinning sphere of chakra. The Rasengan. He didn't drive it into a person. He drove it into the vault wall, the metal screaming in protest as it was drilled, twisted, and annihilated not by heat, but by pure chaotic force. Endeavor saw the multiplication. A cloning quirk? Insignificant. Prominence burn. He gathered fire for a concentrated blast to erase the swarm. Mirage, dragged by a clone, stared at the spinning sphere of energy, an impossible phenomenon of pure force with no heat, no light beyond its chakra glow. Her analytical mind broke. It defies conservation of energy, its creation. The Rasengan pierced through. Cold night air rushed into the superheated vault. Naruto didn't look back. He leapt through the newly made exit, out into a dark, trash-strewn alley behind the bank. Behind him, Endeavor's fire blast obliterated the front of the vault, consuming the clones that sacrificed themselves. Mirage and her team were thrown clear by the concussive force, saved from immolation by the very clones they'd come to capture. Endeavor stormed through the wreckage, flames licking at his form. He saw the hole in the back wall, the cool air rushing in. He saw no Naruto. Only the spinning, carved perfection in the 3-inch thick steel, edges still shimmering with residual energy. A perfect, spiraling drill hole. He clenched his fist, fire roaring in humiliation. He escaped. Mirage pushed herself up, coughing in the smoke. She looked at the hole, then at the scorched but alive forms of her team. He'd saved them. While escaping from them. Her communicator crackled. Skeptic's voice, weak but clear from a backup system. The asset has demonstrated catastrophic offensive and utilitarian capabilities. Primary power, energy generation and manipulation on a subatomic scale. Threat level, incalculable. The experiment is a failure. The variable is too great. Then, a new signal overrode the commission channel. All Might's voice, grave and urgent. Mirage. Endeavor. Report. What is the status of the target? Endeavor snarled into his own calm. The target has escaped. He possesses a dangerous, multifaceted quirk. He is hostile and must be captured by any means necessary. Mirage stared at the spiraling hole in the steel. A symbol, but not the one Skeptic wanted. A symbol of something that could not, and would not, be controlled. She keyed her mic, her voice hollow. The target is not hostile. Repeat, the target is not hostile. He engaged in defensive actions only. He protected commission personnel during the unsanctioned assault. She took a shaky breath. But he is gone. And we have just shown him that both the light and the dark of our world are his enemies. Chapter 5, The Last Symbol. The onigiri was still warm. The taste of salted plum and rice was a simple, profound anchor in the storm of Naruto's reality. He chewed slowly, watching the man who called himself Yagi Tashinori. The exhaustion on his face wasn't just physical. It was the weariness of a mountain that had carried the sky for too long, and finally set it down. This was no villain. This was a man who had lived in the heart of the fire, and been burned down to his embers. You know about the tailed beasts? Naruto repeated, his voice low. The photograph lay between them on the cool rooftop tar, a silent testament to a hidden history. Yagi, All Might, nodded, his bony shoulders hunched against the night wind that carried the distant scent of Endeavor's smoldering victory. I know of one. He corrected gently. A being of incalculable power and rage. It appeared over a century ago, before the dawn of quirks as we know them. A demon made of living flame, with 9 distinct tails lashing the sky. It laid waste to entire regions. Its very presence warped the land, twisted the climate, and changed people. He pointed a trembling finger at the woman in the photo. My teacher's mentor, Nana Shimura. Her line carried a story, passed down in fragments. They called the beast Kyubi, the 9-tailed fox. Its rampage was the first recorded catastrophic metabolity event, though that term came later. The official history calls it a natural disaster, a freak tectonic event. But the stories said it was a god of vengeance, or a plague from the stars. Naruto's heart hammered against his ribs. Kurama. Here. In this world's past. The implications were a vertigo drop. What happened to it? It vanished, All Might said, his blue eyes distant. After decades of destruction, it simply dissipated. Faded into legend. But in the years that followed, in the places its chakra, they called it ambient energy, had saturated the soil, the water, the very air, children were born different. The first generation of quirk users. The power was unstable, wild. But it was a power. A horrifying, beautiful logic clicked into place. Naruto saw it like a summoning formula etched in fire. The Kyubi's chakra, it seeped into the world. It mutated human biology. It created the quirk factor. The very thing that defined this society was a byproduct of a tailed beast's rage. It was an Otsutsuki-style evolution, but born of accident, of disaster, not design. A theory my teacher held. All Might confirmed. One she dared not speak. For if quirks, the foundation of our modern age, were born from a demon's wrath, what does that say about us? About our heroic society built upon that foundation? He looked at Naruto, his gaze piercing. And then you arrive. Wielding not a quirk, but the very source energy that spawned them. Wielding it with control, with intent. With a heart that seeks to protect, not dominate. A strong desire to understand the connection. To find a thread back home, and to assess the true danger to this world. The Kyubi is not a demon, Naruto said, his voice firm. Its name is Kurama. And it's not here. I would know. He tapped his own stomach. Intimately. All Might's eyes widened, true shock breaking through the exhaustion. You mean, you contain it? We're partners, Naruto said simply. But my Kurama has never been to this world. The one that came here, it must have been a counterpart. A reflection. The multiverse theory Sasuke had once grumbled about during a dimensional mission now felt crushingly real. Its chakra was a seed. It planted something in your world. Something that grew sideways. A reflection. All Might mused, the word heavy. Then you are a reflection too? Of what? Of a world that learned to harness that energy properly. A world that paid for it in blood, over and over, until we found balance. Naruto finished the Onigiri, the act grounding him. You said you were a hero. The one they call All Might, right? The symbol of peace. A sad, proud smile touched Yagi's lips. I was. I tried to be a pillar that could hold up the sky, so others wouldn't have to feel its weight. To make people feel safe. But a symbol is a lonely thing. And when it cracks. He didn't need to finish. Naruto saw the crack running through this man's soul, a wound that never healed. I know about symbols, Naruto said, thinking of the Hokage monument, of the faces carved in stone, of the legacy that was both a burden and a beacon. They're not meant to be worshipped. They're meant to inspire people to stand up themselves. A noble ideal. A new, smooth voice cut through the night. They both turned. Standing at the roof access door was a man in an impeccable white suit, his hair neatly combed, a small, polite smile on his face. He held no weapon. He radiated no threat. Yet Naruto's every instinct screamed. This man was more dangerous than Endeavor's fire, than Mirage's shadows. Apologies for the intrusion, the man said, giving a slight bow. I am Makoto Shigaraki. Not the villain you may have heard of, a different branch of the family tree, you might say. I represent certain, interested parties in the government. We monitor anomalies. And you, Mr. Uzumaki, are the most fascinating anomaly to ever grace our shores. A dangerous obstacle, the true power behind the throne. The man who sees everything. All Might moved, a flicker of his old speed, placing himself subtly between Naruto and the newcomer. Shigaraki. The commission's cleaner. I should have known Mirage's failure would bring you. Now, Tashinori. Shigaraki chided, his smile never wavering. No need for hostility. We are all patriots here. We all want what's best for our society. Mr. Uzumaki's sudden appearance, and his rather public demonstrations, have created a rift in our consensus reality. My employers simply wish to help him. And to understand him. For the good of all. His words were honey, but Naruto tasted the poison. This was the true face of the system, not the fiery rage of endeavor, nor the cold extraction of mirage, but the calm, bureaucratic embrace that sought to digest him, to file him away in a cabinet labeled solved. What do you want? Naruto asked, standing up. He didn't adopt a stance, but his chakra, invisible to their senses, coiled tightly within him. Clarity, Shigaraki said, spreading his hands. You speak of another world. Of a different system of power. You represent a paradigm shift we are not prepared for. The Meta Liberation Army sees you as a weapon. The public, if they knew the full truth, might see you as a messiah or a monster. This instability cannot be allowed. You need guidance. Protection from those who would use you. Your protection looks like a lab cell, Naruto said flatly. Perception is everything, Shigaraki agreed. Which is why my offer is more collaborative. Work with us. Legitimize yourself. Let us help you craft a narrative. You could be a hero unlike any other. A bridge between our world and the concept of yours. Under our supervision, of course. A risky decision, reject the gilded cage outright and reveal the true stakes. Naruto looked at All Might, at the fading symbol. He looked at Shigaraki, the smiling keeper of order. He thought of Bakugo's furious pride, of Todoroki's icy duty, of the desperate, mutated faces in the tunnels. He took a step forward, his blue eyes locking onto Shigaraki's polite facade. I've seen your guidance. I've seen heroes who attack first and ask questions never. I've seen a system that would rather bomb a problem than understand it. You don't want a bridge. You want a leash. You're afraid. Not of me. But of what I represent, that maybe your whole society, built on a borrowed, misunderstood power, is fragile. That maybe true strength doesn't come from a quirk or a license, but from here. He thumped his chest, over his heart. Shigaraki's smile tightened, a hairline crack in the porcelain. A stirring speech. Naive. Dangerous. You speak of strength, but you are one man. A man who, according to our psych profiles compiled from today's events, has a pathological, non-strategic need to protect even those who oppose him. That is not strength. That is a flaw. An exploitable one. He lifted a hand, and from the shadows of the rooftop vents, figures emerged. Not soldiers. Not heroes. Men and women in plain clothes, their expressions blank, their quirks dormant but ready. They surrounded the rooftop perimeter. We cannot have a rogue element preaching a philosophy that undermines the very foundation of hero society. You will come with me, Mr. Uzumaki. Peacefully. Or the retired symbol of peace here will be arrested for harboring a dangerous unregistered. His reputation, what's left of it, will be ash. And we will still take you. All Might's body tensed. Shigaraki, don't do this. A consequence that escalates tension, the moral ultimatum. Sacrifice himself, or destroy the last true hero. Naruto saw it. The final dirty move. They would break their own former icon to get to him. This was the system's true face. It would consume its own heroes to maintain control. He felt Kurama's growl resonate through his bones. They are like the council of old. All soft words and hard lies. They want to cage the sun. Naruto made his choice. He wouldn't be caged. And he wouldn't let them break this broken, good man. He smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of Naruto Uzumaki, the boy who faced down armies, the Hokage who carried the hopes of a village. It was a smile that promised unimaginable disruption. You want to see my flaw? My non-strategic need to protect? Naruto said, his voice dropping into a calm, deadly register. Okay. Let me show you. He slammed his palms together. Not for a clone. For something else. Kuchios no Jutsu. The smoke this time was not white. It was deep orange and vast, billowing out with a sound like a tearing sky. It engulfed half the rooftop, sending Shigaraki's plainclothes agents stumbling back. From within the smoke came a sound of scraping scale, of immense weight settling, and a low, earth-rumbling croak that vibrated in their teeth. When the smoke cleared, Shigaraki's perfect composure shattered. Perched on the roof, its massive, bulbous orange form taking up most of the space, was Gamakichi. The toad was the size of a bus, his narrowed eyes surveying the scene with lazy disdain, a massive short sword strapped to his back. He glanced down at Naruto. Been a while, boss. Dimension hopping now? This place reeks of weird energy. His voice was a gravelly baritone. All Might stared, his jaw slack. Shigaraki took an involuntary step back, his mind racing to categorize this. A summoning? A teleportation? A creation? It defied every parameter. Sorry for the sudden call, Gamakichi, Naruto said, leaping lightly onto the toad's head. Need a dramatic exit. And a message delivered. He looked down at Shigaraki, who was already barking orders into a hidden mic. He's summoning Megafauna. All units, converge! Air support! Naruto's voice cut through the panic. You threatened a good man to get to me. That's your piece. So here's my message: I'm not hiding. I'm not surrendering. And I'm not letting your broken system decide who's a hero and who's a threat. He pointed a finger at Shigaraki. I'm going to fix your world. And I'm going to start by showing everyone what a real protector looks like. And you can't stop me. He looked at All Might. Sorry, Yagi-san. I'll find you again. Thanks for the food. And the truth. Gamakichi, Naruto said. Yeah, the toad grumbled. He took a massive breath, his chest expanding. Hold on to your hat, boss. Gamakichi unleashed a torrent of water, not a gentle stream, but a total fire breath technique, minus the fire. A crushing geyser of oil and water blasted across the rooftop, not to injure, but to disrupt, to send Shigaraki and his agents sliding and scrambling. As chaos erupted, Gamakichi crouched and then launched, a titanic leap that carried him and Naruto off the clock tower, arcing over the city skyline towards the darker, industrial sector. On the rooftop, soaked and seething, Shigaraki watched them go. He smoothed his suit, his smile gone, replaced by a cold, calculating grimace. He spoke into his calm. All units. New directive. Target is now considered an S-class catastrophic threat. Authorization granted for the use of lethal force. He has allied himself with non-human entities and declared hostile intent against the state. He turned to a stunned, dripping All Might. You see, Toshinori? This is what your idealism invites. Chaos. We will put it down. And you will publicly condemn him. Or you will share his fate. Down in the streets, citizens pointed and screamed at the sight of a giant toad leaping through the sky. Phones recorded. News helicopters, already alert from the earlier battle, swiveled their cameras. The image would be everywhere by morning, the unregistered, the orange rogue, riding a mythical beast, declaring war on Hero Society. In a dingy bar, watching a grainy live stream on a stolen phone, Tamura Shigaraki scratched his neck violently, a wide, crazed grin splitting his face. Yes! Destroy it all! Tear it down, you orange freak! Make them afraid! Make them ready for us! And in the forests outside the city, a man with a bird mask and a long coat watched the same feed on a high-tech tablet. A summoner, and that chakra signature, it's unmistakably like hers. He turned to the hulking, silent figure beside him. Nomu, we may have found a key. Or a lock. Inform all for one. The game has a new, wild piece. Chapter 6, The Hunter's Game. The scrapyard was a cathedral of silence. The last echoes of Gamakichi's departure faded, leaving only the creak of settling metal and the distant, ever-present hum of the city. The holographic kiosk flickered, casting Naruto's pixelated defiance and ghostly blue light across the mounds of shattered cars. The words burned into his retinas: War on Hero Society. He hadn't declared war. He'd declared an intent to heal. But Shigaraki, with his polished smile and poisoned words, had already spun the narrative. The system was a loom, and Naruto was the thread they were now weaving into a tapestry of fear. The cold night air bit through his jacket. His burns ached. His chakra reserves, while vast, were not infinite, and the summoning had been a significant expenditure. He was tired. Not just physically. Soul tired. The loneliness of this alien world was a weight no Rasengan could shatter. They will send the children. The thought was a cold knife. Bakugo's furious, pride-scarred face flashed in his mind. Todoroki's icy resolve. Yaoyorozu's conflicted duty. They would be weaponized against him, their youthful ideals sharpened into blades by the adults who feared change. A strong desire, to break the cycle. To force a confrontation not of fists, but of ideals. To speak directly to the heart of this world, past the filters of commissions and manipulators. He couldn't do it from the shadows. Shigaraki had seen to that. The entire city was now a panopticon, every eye a potential camera. Hiding would only make him a phantom, a story to be twisted. He had to be visible. But on his terms. He looked at his hands, calloused from a lifetime of training, of fighting, of saving. He wasn't a terrorist. He was a Hokage. And a Hokage did not skulk. A plan, reckless and bold, began to form in his mind. It was less a strategy and more a declaration of principle. If they wanted a hunt, he would give them one. But the prey would set the rules. Yue High School, Briefing Room 1A. The air was thick with the tension no amount of Ada's rigid posture could cut through. The large screen at the front displayed the now infamous rooftop footage on loop, the giant toad, the geyser of water, Naruto's calm, damning proclamation. Beneath it, a cascade of data, threat level, S-class. Alias. Orange. Quirk, unknown, multiplicative, summoning, energy manipulation, physical enhancement. Status, shoot to disable, Lethal force authorized. Principal Nizu, perched on the podium, sipped his tea with an unreadable expression. Beside him, Eraserhead Aizawa looked like he hadn't slept in a week, his capture scarf lying heavy on his shoulders. The entirety of Class 1A sat ramrod straight, their usual chatter utterly extinguished. The situation is unprecedented, Nizu began, his cheerful tone a stark, unsettling contrast to the screen's imagery. A powerful, unregistered individual with abilities that defy conventional quirk analysis has publicly opposed the foundational structures of Hero society. The Hero Public Safety Commission, in conjunction with national security, has activated emergency protocols. Top-tier pro-heroes are being mobilized for a city-wide containment and capture operation. He tapped a remote. The screen split, showing a map of the city with swirling red zones. UA's role, as a premier hero institution, is to support. This does not mean direct engagement. Your internships are hereby suspended. You will be part of coordinated evacuation and crowd control teams in peripheral sectors, under the direct supervision of pro-heroes. This is a learning experience in high-stakes crisis management. A hand shot into the air before Nizu finished. Not Ida's. Bakugo's. He didn't wait to be called on. Bullshit. The word hung in the silent room. Kirishima flinched. Aizawa's eyes narrowed dangerously. Bakugo. Aizawa's voice was a low warning. No! Bakugo stood, his chair scraping back. He pointed a finger at the screen, at Naruto's frozen face. You're telling us to babysit civilians while the pros handle him? I've faced him. I know what he can do. He doesn't fight like a hero or a villain. He fights like he doesn't care about the rules at all. And he made me look like a chump. His voice was raw, not just with anger, but with a humiliation that had festered for hours. He doesn't get to do that and then have me on the sidelines passing out water bottles. A dangerous obstacle, the student's pride, trauma, and indoctrination, now fully activated against him. Sit down, Bakugo, Aizawa said, his quirk flaring, his hair lifting. The command was absolute. Bakugo sat, but his fists were clenched so tight his knuckles were white, tiny sparks dying in his palms under erasure. Todoroki spoke next, his voice calm but firm. Principal Nizu. He spoke to us of protecting people first, before rules. He questioned the system that produced us. Sending us into crowd control while labeling him a catastrophic threat, it feels like we are being shielded from the argument itself. Yayarosa nodded, her face pale. His abilities, they weren't just powerful. They were different. The substitution, the energy sphere that drilled through steel, our current quirk science cannot explain them. If we are to be heroes in a world that contains such unknowns, shouldn't our first engagement be to understand, not just to subdue? Your priority is to follow orders and ensure public safety, Aizawa stated, his voice flat. Philosophical debates are a luxury for times of peace. This is not peace. This individual has summoned a potentially hostile creature in a densely populated area and issued a broad threat. The time for understanding is after he is in custody. And if he's right? The question came softly, from the back. Midoriya Izuku had been scribbling frantically in a notebook, his muttering a low stream. Now he looked up, his green eyes wide with a complex storm of analysis and doubt. What if part of the system is broken? What if our way of being heroes has a flaw he can see and we can't? All Might always said a hero saves everyone, even villains. But the order is lethal force authorized. That's not saving. That's eliminating a problem. The room went utterly still. To question the Commission's orders was one thing. To invoke All Might's ideology against the current directive was another. Nizu set his teacup down with a soft click. An excellent and dangerous question, Midoriya. One that strikes at the heart of this profession. The answer, for now, is that society's stability is the ultimate everyone that must be saved. This Naruto is an instability of the highest order. Our duty is to restore equilibrium. You will learn in time that the line between principle and pragmatism is where a hero truly lives, and often dies. The briefing concluded with stern directives. They were to report to assigned pro-heroes in 1 hour. No deviations. No independent action. As the class filed out, the fracture lines were visible. Bakugo stormed ahead, a barely contained explosive device. Todoroki was lost in cold thought. Midoriya looked sick with conflict. Ida tried to enforce order, but his usual certainty was shaken. Kirishima caught up to Bakugo in the hall. Hey man, I get it. He beat you. It's messed up. But the pros have this. He didn't beat me. Bakugo snarled, whirling around. He cheated. He used some cheap, invisible trick. And then he gave me that look, like I was a spoiled kid throwing a tantrum. He leaned in, his voice dropping to a vicious whisper. I'm going to find him. I'm going to prove that my way, the hero way, is stronger. I don't need some extra's permission to be a hero. A risky decision by a student, to defy orders and pursue a personal vendetta, believing it to be heroic justice. The industrial sector, Hour 0. Naruto stood atop a towering, decommissioned smokestack. The wind whipped his hair and jacket. Below him, the city stretched out, a glittering, chaotic organism. He could feel them moving. The sharp, distinct flares of powerful quirks converging like bloodhounds on a scent. He made no effort to hide his chakra this time. He let it burn, a steady, brilliant beacon for those who could sense such things, a challenge and an invitation. He saw the lights of news helicopters circling at a distance, kept back by police barriers. He saw the sleek forms of hero support vehicles sealing off streets. The net was closing. Exactly as he'd intended. The first to arrive was not who he expected. A figure in green, moving with incredible, bounding leaps from rooftop to rooftop. Not a pro. Too small, too frantic. Midoriya Izuku. The boy landed on a roof adjacent to the smokestack, breathing heavily, his costume scuffed. He hadn't come with the sanctioned teams. He'd come alone. Uzumaki-san! Midoriya called out, his voice carrying on the wind. He didn't attack. He held up his hands. Please! We need to talk! Naruto tilted his head. This was the anxious, scribbling boy from the bakery incident footage he'd seen on a stolen phone. The one with the analytical eyes. You're not here to capture me? I don't know, Midoriya admitted, his voice cracking with stress. I just know that what you said, and what they're saying about you, they don't match. All Might taught me that a hero saves people. And you saved that girl. You saved the commission agents from Endeavor's fire. So why are you doing this now? Why declare war? Naruto jumped, landing lightly on the roof opposite Midoriya, keeping a wide gap between them. He saw the boy tense, green energy flickering around him. But he held his ground. I'm not declaring war on people, Naruto said. I'm declaring war on a lie. The lie that safety comes from control. That strength needs a license. I come from a village where everyone had the potential for the power I wield. And yes, it led to war. To horrible pain. But it also led to bonds, to sacrifice, to a peace earned through understanding, not enforcement. He looked at Midoriya's trembling fists. Your teacher, All Might, he was a symbol held up by a system that's now cracking. What happens when the symbol is gone, and only the system remains? You saw it today. They'd rather burn a problem than understand it. Midoriya's eyes swam with tears of frustration. But you're making it worse. By summoning that toad, you're making them afraid. They'll use more force. People will get hurt. They were already hurting, Naruto said softly. People in the dark, people with quirks that don't fit, people crushed by the weight of your peace. Sometimes, the only way to heal a festering wound is to open it up and clean it out. No matter how much it hurts. A new voice, crackling with static and fury, erupted from a speaker on a police drone that zipped into the space between them. DKU! What the hell do you think you're doing? Get away from him! Bakugo. He was close. Midoriya flinched. Kaken! He's not your friend to analyze, you nerd! He's the enemy! Bakugo exploded onto the scene, not from a rooftop, but from street level, using his quirk to rocket himself onto a water tower to Naruto's left. He was in full costume, his eyes blazing. He must have stolen away from his assigned sector. I'm taking him down. Right now. By myself. Naruto looked from the conflicted idealist to the furious prodigy. This was the heart of the next generation, laid bare before him. One seeking answers, the other seeking validation. You're both making a mistake, Naruto said. You. He nodded to Midoriya. By thinking you can reason with a machine built on fear. And you. He looked at Bakugo. By thinking beating me will prove your way is right. It'll just prove you're stronger in a fight. It proves nothing about being a hero. Shut up! Bakugo screamed, and launched himself, not at Naruto, but past him, aiming a devastating right hook at Midoriya. I'll deal with you after I put this traitor in the ground! Midoriya yelped, diving sideways as Bakugo's explosion cratered the rooftop where he'd been standing. A consequence that escalates danger. His presence is fracturing the heroes in training, turning them against each other. Naruto moved. He appeared between them as Bakugo spun for another attack. Stop. This is what they want. Heroes fighting each other while the real sickness goes untreated. The only sickness here is you. Bakugo pivoted, his full fury now directed at Naruto. AP shot, autocannon. A rapid-fire barrage of pinpoint explosions, each capable of punching through concrete, streaked toward Naruto. Naruto didn't substitute. He didn't clone. He moved, a swirling dance of precise, minimal motions, each twist and sway letting a blast pass by him, close enough to feel the heat, but never connecting. It was an arrogant, breathtaking display of taijutsu mastery that made Bakugo's powerful quirk look clumsy, overblown. See? Cheap tricks! Bakugo raged, charging in close for a point-blank blast. Naruto caught his wrist again, just like in the alley. But this time, Bakugo was ready. His other hand was already glowing, pressed against Naruto's side. Got you! Die! The explosion was point-blank, deafening, a sunburst of light and heat that engulfed them both. Midoriya screamed. Kaken! No! The smoke cleared. Bakugo was panting, a wild grin on his face. It faded instantly. Naruto stood, smoke curling from his side where his jacket was vaporized, revealing red, blistered but already knitting skin beneath. He hadn't let go of Bakugo's wrist. His eyes were no longer calm. They were the eyes of a man who had faced down gods. Your power, Naruto said, his voice a low vibration that carried terrible weight. It's a good power. Strong. But it's fueled by rage. By a need to be on top. That's a weak foundation. It will break. And when it does, it will break you. He shoved Bakugo back, not with great force, but with an unshakable finality that sent the boy stumbling. Before Bakugo could recover, before Midoriya could intervene, a wave of oppressive darkness fell over the rooftop. The air grew cold. A tall, lanky figure in a tattered black coat landed silently behind Naruto. Enough playing with children, a dry, raspy voice said. It was Eraserhead, his capture scarf floating around him, his eyes glowing red, his hair levitating. Uzumaki, you're under arrest. Behind him, on neighboring rooftops, more figures landed. The wild pussycats. Edge shot, a line of folded steel. They had been lying in wait, letting the students flush him out, draw his attention. The real hunt was here. Naruto looked at Eraserhead, felt the strange nullifying effect of his quirk trying to latch onto his chakra. It itched, a discomfort at the edge of his senses, but it didn't grip. His chakra wasn't a quirk, it was his life force. You couldn't erase someone's heartbeat. He gave a small, tired smile to Midoriya, who looked horrified, and to Bakugo, who looked stunned and furious. You wanted to see what I am? Naruto said to them all, to the converging heroes. You wanted to see the power that doesn't follow your rules? He brought his hands together in a single, slow seal. Eraserhead lunged, capture scarf flying. Don't let him complete a maneuver! But it wasn't an attack seal. It was a communication seal, one of the first Jiraiya had taught him, amplified by 1,000-fold with his sheer chakra volume. Hello, Muzurifu. His voice didn't just sound on the rooftop. It echoed. It boomed. It resonated from every speaker, every phone, every electronic device with an audio output for a 3-mile radius. A voice in 1,000,000 living rooms, 1,000 cars, 100 news studios. A calm, clear voice cutting through the static of fear. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I am a shinobi from another world. I did not come here to fight you. I came here by accident. But I have seen your sickness. I have seen heroes who protect rules more than people. I have seen a system that breeds fear in the dark and arrogance in the light. He looked directly at the nearest news helicopter camera, its lens a glassy eye. So here I am. In 3 days, at sunrise, I will be at the center of Takoba Municipal Beach. I will stand there, unarmed. I invite any who call themselves heroes, pro student, or simply someone with the heart for it, to come and face me. Not to capture me. To talk. To debate. To try and make me see the error of my ways. Or for me to show you the error of yours. Eraserhead's scarf wrapped around him. Edge shot became a needle, shooting toward a pressure point. But if you come with violence, Naruto's voice continued, echoing across the city. I will not fight to kill. I will fight to teach. And the lesson will be that no amount of quirks, no amount of rules, can match the power of a will that fights for what's right. Not for what's ordered. He met Eraserhead's shocked eyes. The choice is yours. Be heroes who silence a voice. Or be humans who listen to a warning. Then, in a puff of smoke that was not a clone, but an advanced variation of the replacement jutsu using a prepositioned log from the scrapyard, he was gone. The scarf tightened around empty air. Edge shot stabbed through smoke. On the rooftop, only a stunned Bakugo, a tearful Midoriya, and a cadre of elite pro heroes stood, humiliated, as Naruto's challenge reverberated through the soul of the city. The war was not one of destruction. He had just declared a war of ideas. And he had chosen the time, the place, and the battlefield. Chapter 7, The Calm Before. The city held its breath. Naruto's voice, that impossible, resonant broadcast, had faded from the airwaves, but its echo hammered in the collective skull of Muzurifu. For a few stunned minutes there was silence, the kind of silence that follows a thunderclap too close. Then, the noise returned, not of sirens, but of a million conversations igniting at once. In bars, homes, and streets, screens flickered with the replay. Pundits exploded with apoplectic rage. Social media became a war zone of hashtags. Hashtag Shinobi Challenge, hashtag Hero Debate, hashtag Uzumaki Threat, hashtag Listen to Him. The split was immediate and vicious. Some saw a brazen terrorist dictating terms. Others saw a revolutionary prophet calling for accountability. Most were just confused, afraid, and glued to the spectacle. A strong desire for the world to make sense of the insensible. To choose a side before the choice is made for them. At Yurei, lockdown had become a siege of a different kind. Reporters swarmed the gates. The Board of Trustees was in emergency session. Within the dorms, Class 1A was a microcosm of the societal fracture. Bakugo had been confined to his room after his unsanctioned attack, not for going after Naruto, but for attacking Midoriya. He sat in furious silence, replaying the moment his point-blank explosion had barely scarred the man. Cheap tricks? No. That was raw, terrifying durability. The memory of Naruto's eyes, ancient, patient, and utterly disappointed, burned worse than any defeat. Midoriya was in the common room, surrounded by notebooks but writing nothing. He stared at a blank page, his mind a whirlwind. He saved the commission agents from Endeavor's fire. The analysis was undeniable. The actions didn't match the label of catastrophic threat. But the challenge, it was anarchy. It threatened the very order that kept people safe. Yet, All Might's smile flashed in his memory. It's your power, isn't it? What was the core of a hero's power? Was it the quirk, licensed and approved? Or was it the heart, whether registered or not? Todoroki sat by the window, watching the media circus. His father, Endeavor, had already given a blistering statement. This farce will be ended with decisive force at Takoba. There will be no debate with lawbreakers. The icy certainty was familiar, but for the first time, Todoroki felt a chill that had nothing to do with his quirk. What if his father's decisive force was the very symptom the shinobi spoke of? Yaoyorozu had created a sophisticated signal jammer out of habit, then destroyed it, unsure if she was preventing outside surveillance or internal doubt. Ida chopped the air, trying to enforce rules that seemed suddenly fluid. Uraraka bit her lip, thinking of her parents' struggling construction business, built on the rubble of hero fights. Was this different? Aizawa stood before them, looking more drained than ever. The commission and the school have decided, he announced, his voice flat. No student will be within 5 kilometers of Takoba Beach at sunrise in 3 days. This is not a debate. It is a potential combat zone of the highest order. You will remain here under guard. Your safety, and the safety of the public image of hero education, is paramount. The order was a wall. But the challenge had already planted seeds that grew in cracks. In the city's forgotten places, Naruto moved like a whisper. He'd used the chaotic aftermath of his broadcast to vanish, not into the deep underground, but into the interstitial spaces of society, the rooftops of old apartments, the back rooms of family-owned shops whose owners asked no questions of a tired-looking man with intense eyes who paid in strange, flawless gold coins. A risky decision, to reach out. To trust. He needed an ally. Not a follower. A sounding board. Someone who understood the weight of a symbol. There was only one person. Finding Yagi Tashinori wasn't hard. The man was being monitored, but the surveillance was focused on preventing him from reaching Naruto. It wasn't prepared for Naruto to come to him. The retired hero sat in a small, stark apartment provided by the commission, a gilded cage with a view of the city he once saved. He was staring at a silent news feed when a voice spoke from his balcony. I brought better food this time. Yagi didn't jump. He simply turned, a sad smile on his face, as Naruto slipped through the sliding door. He carried a bag of steaming takoyaki. You have a knack for making entrances that give security forces ulcers, Yagi said, gesturing to a chair. Naruto sat, placing the food on the table. They're watching the doors, the vents, the comms. They don't watch the sheer face of a building 3 stories up. It's not in their threat assessment. You've assessed them quite thoroughly. I've had to. Naruto opened the container, the savory smell filling the room. I meant what I said on the roof. I don't want to destroy your world. I want to shock it awake. But I can't do it alone. And I won't do it by just fighting everyone. Yagi took a takoyaki ball, studying it. The challenge at the beach. It's a brilliant and terrible gambit. You've painted a target on your back for every hero, every zealot, and every villain who wants to make a statement. You've also given the people a stage. You're forcing a public conversation hero society has avoided for generations. What are we protecting, and why? Will you be there? Naruto asked directly. Yagi's frail body seemed to shrink further. They will not let me. And if I defy them, they will destroy what's left of All Might, turn him into a cautionary tale of a hero led astray. The symbol would be used to bury your message. I'm not asking for all might, Naruto said, his blue eyes unwavering. I'm asking for Tashinori Yagi. The man who knows what it's like to stand alone for an ideal. The man who knows the system's cracks because he was the plaster holding them together. I don't need a fighter. I need a witness. A dangerous obstacle, the erosion of will. The cost of a lifetime of sacrifice. Yagi looked out the window at the glittering, troubled city. I am a ghost, Naruto. A remnant. My power is gone. My body is broken. All I have left is my story, and they are rewriting it as we speak. Stories are powerful, Naruto said, thinking of Jiraiya, of the tale of the child of prophecy. They can be weapons or shields. But the truest stories are the ones lived, not the ones told about you. He leaned forward. The Kyuubi that was here, its chakra made this world. That means, in a way, my world and yours are family. A strange branch of the family, but family nonetheless. I can't walk away from that. The word family hit Yagi with a physical force. He thought of Nana, of the legacy she passed, of the lonely pinnacle. He thought of young Midoriya, inheriting a quirk and a crushing hope. This strange young man from another world spoke of family, of connections that spanned dimensions. It was naive. It was revolutionary. What do you need from me? Yagi whispered. Tell me about the first one for all user, Naruto said. The one from the time of the Kyuubi's rampage. Your teacher's stories. Any fragment. If quirks are born from tailed beast chakra, then the first quirk, the one that could be passed down, it might be different. It might be the closest thing in this world to pure chakra manipulation. Yagi's breath caught. It was a connection he'd never dared make. The secret of one for all, a power that grew and was passed on, completely unlike the random, static nature of quirks. Could it be a relic of that other, purer system? A single, uncorrupted seed that fell from the same tree? He began to speak, his voice a low rumble of history and legend. He spoke of a vague figure, of a power born not of evolution but of will, of a determination to resist the demon's chaos. It was piecemeal, shrouded in time. But to Naruto, trained in the lore of the Sage of Six Paths, it sounded familiar. It sounded like the desperate, initial stirrings of Nishu, the precursor to ninjutsu, the art of connecting chakra, not for war, but for understanding. As Yagi spoke, Naruto's mind raced. If one for all was a nascent form of chakra synergy, then Midoriya, its current holder, wasn't just using a powerful quirk. He was, however crudely, touching the edge of Naruto's own power source. He was a potential bridge. The underworld reacts. In a bar that smelled of stale blood and ambition, Tamura Shigaraki scratched his neck raw, watching the news on a cracked tablet. A public debate. He giggled, a dry, raspy sound. He's giving them a chance to talk themselves into a corner. How boring. He looked at the hulking, brain-exposed Noma beside him. We'll give them something to really talk about. Sensei says we have a role to play. We'll be the punctuation at the end of his sentence. His companion, the man in the bird mask, Mr. Compress, twirled a marble between his fingers. A grand stage requires a grand performance. The liberation of this world from hero hypocrisy, it should be a spectacle. The commission prepares. In a war room, Makoto Shigaraki pointed at a hologram of Takoba Beach. We control the narrative. We flood the perimeter with our strongest heroes. We have snipers with quirk-suppressing rounds. The moment he appears, he is to be immobilized. Not killed, that would make him a martyr. We take him alive, sedated, and then we announce he was apprehended peacefully after seeing the error of his ways. We spin his challenge into a plea for help from a disturbed individual, which our heroic system mercifully answered. Endeavor stood, his flames flickering in the hologram's light. And if he resists? Then the world sees the dangerous extremist we have always said he was, Shigaraki said smoothly. Either way, we win. All Might's image was on a monitor, patched in remotely. He looked gaunt, grim. This is a mistake. You are treating a plea for dialogue as a military operation. You will only prove his point. Your sentimentality is noted, Tashinori, Shigaraki said without looking at him. And dismissed. Naruto's preparation. For the next 2 days, Naruto didn't train. He didn't plan elaborate jutsu. He walked. He visited the forgotten edges of the city, the homeless shelters filled with people whose quirks made them unemployable, the support companies run into the ground by hero agency monopolies, the families of villains, living in shame. He listened. He heard stories of heroes who cared more about their ranking than the collateral damage. Of people jailed for using their quirks in self-defense without a license. Of a system so focused on the spectacular, flashy evil that it let the quiet, systemic cruelty fester. He felt the grudge energy, the negative emotions, the fear, the resentment. In his world, such energy could coalesce into tailed beasts, into hatred incarnate. Here, it was diffuse, simmering, a poison in the societal groundwater. It was fuel for people like Tamura Shigaraki. It was the sickness. On the eve of the challenge, Naruto stood on a cliff overlooking Takoba Beach. It was once a trash heap, cleaned by a determined boy's effort. He'd heard the story. Now it was a pristine, empty stage, already surrounded by a distant ring of barricades and lights. A perfect amphitheater. He closed his eyes and reached inward. Kurama. Humph. Finally bothering me? The beast's voice was a grumble in his mind. You felt it too, right? The chakra here. In the earth. A pause. Yes. A stain. Faint, twisted, but familiar. It's not mine. But it's kin. A mirror image, driven mad by loneliness and rage, leaking its essence into the soil for a century. This world is built on a grave. Can we talk to it? Naruto asked. Not the beast. The memory. The echo in the land itself? Kurama was silent for a long time. Fool. Sentimental fool. That echo is just pain. It has no mind. Pain needs to be acknowledged before it can heal, Naruto thought back, the words of 1,000 lessons from Iruka, from Kakashi, from Jiraiya. Maybe that's my job here. Not to fight the heroes. To acknowledge the pain their world is built on. He sat down in a meditative stance, his hands forming the ram seal. Not to gather nature energy for sage mode. But to listen. To extend his chakra, gently, into the earth of Takoba, to feel the ancient, faded scream of the Kyuubi's counterpart that had died here, seeding this world with its chaotic power. What he felt wasn't a voice. It was a temperature. A deep, cold sorrow, and a furious, unending heat. It was the DNA of this world's conflict. He opened his eyes as the first hint of dawn tinged the horizon. It was time. Chapter 8, Takoba Sunrise. The dawn did not break. It was assembled. First, a pale, watery light seeped into the eastern sky, hesitant. Then, the harsh, artificial glare of spotlights and media choppers stabbed from the land and the sea, carving the beach into a stark theater of light and long, distorted shadow. The sand, once a trash heap, now a pristine crescent, looked like bleached bone under the dual assault of nature and spectacle. Barricades lined the boardwalk and the access roads, manned by a grim-faced mix of police and lower-tier heroes. Behind them, a restless sea of humanity pressed, thousands of citizens who had come to witness history, or a slaughter. Their murmurs were a constant, rolling wave of sound, punctuated by the whir of drones and the bark of orders through megaphones. Stay behind the line! Do not attempt to approach! At the center of it all, the beach was empty. The pro-heroes stood in a loose, tactical semicircle at the treeline where sand met scrubbed grass. Endeavor was a pillar of contained flame at the apex, his jaw set, eyes scanning the horizon. To his left, Eraserhead, a study in weary readiness, his capture scarf stirring in the salt breeze. To his right, Edge-shot, a folded razor of a man, and Mirko, bouncing on the balls of her feet, a predator eager for the pounce. Dozens more fanned out, Ryukyu in dragon form, Kamui Wood's crust. It was a display of force meant to awe and intimidate, a visual argument against Naruto's claim of systemic rot. See our strength, it said. See our unity. High above, in a command chopper, Makoto Shigaraki watched a bank of monitors. All assets in position. Snipers have clean lines. Quirk suppression net is ready to deploy on my mark. Remember, the priority is a live, compliant capture. We want him walking off that beach in cuffs, a defeated man. Let the cameras see the system work. On the ground, Endeavor's calm crackled. He's late. This is a farce. Patience. Eraserhead muttered, though his own was frayed. He remembered the rooftop, the way his erasure had slid off the man like water. He'll come. In the crowd, hidden under a hoodie and a medical mask, Toshinori Yagi felt his fragile heart hammer against his ribs. The sheer concentration of power, of tension, was a physical pressure. He saw the fear and excitement on the faces around him, the phones held aloft like digital votive candles. He saw, on the fringe, a familiar green flicker as Midoriya Izuku found a vantage point atop a boarded-up concession stand, his face pale with resolve and terror. A strong desire, collective for the moment to arrive. For the tension to snap. The sun's first Rio ray, a sliver of molten gold, crested the horizon and touched the wet sand. He appeared. Not in a puff of smoke or a flash of light. One moment, the center of the beach was empty. The next, he was simply there, as if the light had coalesced into his form. Naruto Uzumaki stood alone on the hard-packed sand near the waterline, his orange jacket bright against the monochrome dawn, his arms loose at his sides. He wore no armor. He carried no weapon. A collective gasp swept the beach, followed by a surge of noise that was immediately quelled by the booming loudspeakers. Naruto Uzumaki! Endeavor's amplified voice rode across the sand, dripping with authority. You are surrounded! You will kneel, submit to quirk suppression, and surrender yourself to the custody of the Hero Public Safety Commission. This is your only warning. Naruto didn't kneel. He didn't even look at Endeavor. He turned slowly, his gaze sweeping the semicircle of heroes, the barricades, the sea of faces beyond. His eyes, from this distance, were unreadable blue points. He took a breath, and when he spoke, his voice was not amplified by technology, but by chakra. It carried effortlessly to every ear on the beach, a calm, clear tone that cut through the mechanical noise. I said I came to talk. So let's talk. He finally looked at Endeavor. Your power is fire. A purifying flame. Tell me, what have you come here to purify? Endeavor took a step forward, sand hissing into glass beneath his feet. I have come to purge the threat you represent. The threat of lawlessness. Of anarchy. Anarchy is the absence of rules, Naruto said, his head tilting. I'm not asking for no rules. I'm asking for better ones. Rules that protect the woman whose quirk makes her look like a monster and can't find work. Rules that don't let a hero incinerate a city block to capture one villain. Rules that see power as a responsibility to all, not a license for the few. Mirko shouted. Pretty words. You attack students. I defended myself from an attack meant to cripple or kill, Naruto replied, his gaze flicking to where Bakugo undoubtedly was, watching from a forced distance. And I disarmed him without breaking a single bone. Did your commission report include that part? Or just the part where I fled? A dangerous obstacle. The script is already written. The heroes are here to enact a play, not have a dialogue. Eraserhead spoke, his voice cutting through the rising murmur. Your methods are the problem. You operate outside the system, causing panic, destroying property, summoning dangerous creatures. The system exists to prevent exactly that chaos. The system, Naruto said, turning to him, created the chaos I walked into. A little girl was under rubble. I lifted it. Your response was to aim weapons at me and call for my power to be erased. That moment wasn't chaos. It was the system working exactly as designed, protecting its monopoly on help. Is that what a hero is? A bureaucrat with a costume? The crowd rippled. A few cheers erupted, quickly silenced. The camera drones zoomed in, capturing every micro-expression on the heroes' faces, Endeavor's fury, Edgeshot's impassivity, Mirko's bristling anger, Eraserhead's deep frown. Makoto Shigaraki's voice was a hiss in Endeavor's earpiece. Enough. He's winning the soundbite war. Take him. Now. Endeavor's flames erupted, a corona of violence. Enough debate. You stand against everything we have built. You are a cancer, and I will burn you out. Flash fire fist. A torrent of concentrated fire, hot enough to vaporize steel, roared across the sand toward Naruto. It was the first move. The point of no return. A risky decision. Do not counterattack. Demonstrate. Naruto didn't move. He didn't weave signs. He raised his right hand palm open. The fire hit. The world watched as the inferno engulfed him, a conflagration that darkened the morning sky. The crowd screamed. Midoriya cried out. Yagi's hand flew to his mouth. But Endeavor, his teeth gritted in effort, felt the wrongness. The fire wasn't connecting. It wasn't striking a barrier and spreading. It was being absorbed. Vanishing. The flames died, revealing Naruto, untouched, standing in a circle of scorched, glassy sand. His outstretched palm glowed with a faint, orange light. He had taken the full force of Endeavor's prominence burn, an attack that leveled buildings, and absorbed the chakra-like energy within the flames, nullifying the heat and force. To this world, it was impossible. Your fire, Naruto said, his voice still calm, though a thin trail of steam rose from his skin, is just energy. Angry, wild energy. Like the rage of the beast that first scarred this land. He closed his hand, snuffing out the glow. You wield its legacy, but you don't understand its pain. You just mimic its destruction. The silence was absolute, stunned. Endeavor stared, his worldview cracking. His ultimate attack, rendered meaningless. Now! Shigaraki screamed from the chopper. From hidden emplacements, cannons fired not bullets, but weighted nets woven with quirk-suppressing filaments and tranquilizer pods. At the same time, Eraserhead eyes glowed red, his hair lifting, his quirk targeting Naruto. Mirko and Edgeshot shot forward, a blur of speed and sharpened steel. It was a perfect, coordinated takedown. Overwhelming force applied with surgical precision. Naruto smiled. It was a small, sad smile. He brought his palms together. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. But this was different. 100 clones? 1,000? The beach exploded with orange. Not just on the sand, but on the water's surface, on the roofs of distant beach huts, interposed between the charging heroes and the nets. The air filled with the sound of popping smoke and a chorus of a single voice. "You're not listening." A clone caught Mirko's kick, spinning her away. 3 clones wrapped themselves around Ed's shot, dissolving as he cut through them but slowing his lethal momentum. A wall of clones raised their hands, and a unified Futon de Tapa! Wind release, great breakthrough, erupted not as a cutting force, but as a massive, concussive wall of air that caught the nets and flung them back toward the barricades, causing panic. Eraserhead's quirk washed over the real Naruto. He felt the familiar itch, the slight drain. It was like trying to hold back the ocean with a cup. Naruto looked directly at him, and shook his head once. "Your power is not meant for this." Chaos. Beautiful, orchestrated chaos. The pro-heroes, the best of the best, were suddenly tangled in a swarm of duplicates that fought not to injure, but to disrupt, to deflect, to demonstrate the sheer, absurd gap in tactical flexibility. In the command chopper, Shigaraki was on his feet. "He's toying with them. Activate the suppressors at full power. Scramble the air support. I want that beach saturated." But before the order could be fully executed, a new, darker chaos erupted. From beneath the boardwalk, from sewer grates, from the shadows of the crowd itself, figures surged. Not heroes. A swirling purple and black vortex appeared in the center of the beach, disgorging Tamura Shigaraki, his hand on his face, giggling maniacally. Around him, the League of Villains materialized, Dabi, blue flames wreathing his arms, Mr. Compress, marbles ready, Spinner, roaring, and Twice, already multiplying. "The party's getting boring," Tamura screeched. "Let's add some new rules." Dabi unleashed a wave of sapphire fire, not at Naruto, but at the semicircle of heroes, forcing them to break formation and defend. Mr. Compress's marbles flew, capturing startled police and heroes in crystal spheres. Panic, real and uncontrollable, erupted at the barricades as the crowd realized villains were among them. Endeavor roared, turning his fury on Dabi. "Villain scum!" "Language, father!" Dabi sneered, the words slicing through the noise and hitting Endeavor like a physical blow. A consequence that escalates danger. The fragile theater of control is utterly shattered. Heroes, rogue, and villains are now in a 3-way battle, with civilians in the crossfire. Tamura Shigaraki pointed a decaying finger at Naruto, who stood surrounded by the dissipating smoke of his clones, his expression now grim. You made the stage. But your script is lame. Let me show you how to really break a world." He lunged, not at a hero, but at the nearest barricade, his fingers outstretched toward the screaming crowd. Naruto moved. A body flicker placed him directly in Tamura's path. He caught the wrist of the decaying hand, his own grip reinforced with chakra to resist the disintegration. "Don't," Naruto said, his voice cold for the first time. "They're not part of your game." Tamura's wide, red eyes gleamed with delight. "Everything is part of the game. Especially the pieces that break." His other hand shot out for Naruto's face. Naruto didn't release the grip. He leaned in, his voice a whisper only Tamura could hear. "I know pain. I know rage. I was filled with it. This path, it only leads to more of the same. Empty. Alone." For a fraction of a second, something vulnerable flickered in Tamura's eyes, the lonely child, the damaged boy. Then it was swallowed by nihilistic fury. "Shut up!" The air above the beach tore open with a sound like ripping fabric. A Nomu, not the brain-exposed USJ type, but a newer, more horrific model, a winged, multi-armed abomination with exposed muscle and beaked mouth, plummeted from a warp gate, aiming straight for the densest part of the crowd. It was a catastrophe in motion. Heroes were engaged. The system was broken. And innocents were about to die. Naruto looked from Tamura's madness, to the descending Nomu, to the terrified crowd, to the heroes struggling against the League. This was the sickness manifest. The violence, the division, the exploitation of pain. He released Tamura's wrist and took 3 steps back, into the very center of the beach. He closed his eyes. His final, ultimate decision, he would not fight any of them. He would fight the sickness itself. He brought his hands together, not in a combat seal, but in the seal of reconciliation, a meditative pose from the deepest lore of Mount Maiboku. He drew not on his own chakra alone, nor Kurama's. He reached down, through his feet, into the sand, into the bedrock, into the century-old echo of the Kyuubi's counterpart that slept in the land. "I acknowledge your pain," he thought, pouring his own empathy, his own understanding of loneliness, and rage into the earth. "You were lost and afraid in a world not your own. You lashed out. You left a part of yourself here. I see you." He then reached out with his chakra, a gentle, immense wave, touching the panicked minds of the crowd, The furious hearts of the heroes, the twisted souls of the villains. Not to control. To feel. To share, for a blinding instant, a glimpse of pure, unfiltered connection, the fundamental principle of Nishu. He spoke, and his voice was not his own. It was a chorus of 1,000 whispers, the voice of the land, the ghost of the beast, and the heart of a Hokage. Look! A pulse of golden light erupted from him. Not an explosion. A wave. It washed over everything. The descending Noma shrieked, not in aggression, but in confusion, its programmed violence short-circuiting as it was flooded with alien sensory input, the memory of a forest, of peace. It veered, crashing harmlessly into the empty surf. Tamura Shigaraki stumbled back, clutching his head, the decaying itch on his skin suddenly screaming with the memory of a gentle hand he hadn't felt since childhood. Dabi's flame sputtered and died as he was bombarded with a sense of searing heat that was not his own, the heat of a hearth, of a home, gone. In the crowd, fear evaporated, replaced by a profound, bewildering sense of being seen, of being connected to the person next to them, hero or civilian. Endeavor felt the cold. Not the cold of Todoroki's ice, but the deep, hollow cold of an empty house, of a sun's silent back. Eraserhead felt the crushing weight of constant vigilance lift for a single, impossible second, replaced by the simple, warm weight of a sleeping cat. Midoriya felt the legacy of One for All not as a burden, but as a chain of hands, reaching back through time, all linked. Tashinori Yagi felt Nana's hand on his shoulder, and for the first time in years, he did not feel alone. The golden wave passed. The light faded. Silence returned, deeper than before. The fighting had stopped. Everyone, hero, villain, citizen, stood frozen, breathless, tears, unbidden and unexplained, streaming down many faces. Naruto opened his eyes. They were no longer just blue. They held a ring of faint, sage-like gold. He was pale, swaying slightly on his feet. The effort had been titanic. He looked at the stunned, silent tableau. He spoke, his voice now hoarse, barely a whisper yet carrying in the perfect quiet. That is what it feels like to be connected. To understand. That is the power your world was born from and forgot. It doesn't have to be a weapon. It can be a bridge. He took a stumbling step backward toward the sea. The lesson is over. Then, his strength spent, the chakra backlash from channeling the land's dramatic echo hitting him, Naruto's eyes rolled back, and he collapsed onto the sand, unconscious. The spell broke. Chaos did not return. A strange, odd stillness did. Into that stillness, from the edge of the water, a new figure walked. He had not been there a moment before. A tall man with long, dark hair, dressed in simple robes, a staff in his hand, and a single, glowing Rinnegan eye visible beneath his bangs. He looked at the fallen Naruto, then at the gathered might and confusion of a world. Fascinating, Uchiha Sasuke said, his voice like dry stone. It seems, Naruto, you've managed to break a different world without even trying to fight it. He walked forward, unconcerned by the hundreds of eyes upon him, and knelt beside his friend. Chapter 9, The Aftermath Wave. Silence, in the wake of the impossible, is not peaceful. It is a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum. On Takoba Beach, the silence lasted for 10 full seconds after the black and purple swirl vanished, taking the two strangers from another world. 10 seconds of thousands of people breathing in the residue of a golden feeling that was already fading, like a dream upon waking. Then, the noise rushed back in. Not the roar of battle or debate, but a cacophony of sobs, bewildered shouts, and the frantic, overlapping chatter of reporters broadcasting live to a stunned globe. The cameras, still rolling, panned across scenes of profound disorientation, pro-heroes standing like statues, staring at their own hands, hardened police officers weeping openly, members of the League of Villains huddled together, not in menace, but in confusion, Tamura Shigaraki scratching at his neck with a frantic, lost rhythm. Endeavor extinguished his flames. The absence of their roar was deafening. He looked at Dabi, Tuya, who was staring back at him with an expression not of hatred, but of a raw, unbearable hurt that mirrored the phantom feeling of cold Endeavor had just experienced. No words passed between them. The moment was too vast, too terrible. Eraserhead's capture scarf lay limp. His eyes burned from overuse, but a deeper fatigue had set in. He had felt it, the sheer, staggering otherness of Naruto's final act. It wasn't a quirk. It was an experience. A forced empathy on a cellular level. How did you arrest that? How did you classify it? High above, the wreckage of the commissioned chopper smoldered in the bay. The man who had given the kill order was presumed dead. The chain of command was broken. In the crowd, Midoriya Izuku sank to his knees on the roof of the concession stand, his body trembling. The feeling, it had been like One for All times 1,000, but warm instead of electric. a chorus instead of a single voice. He had felt the links in the chain, all the way back to the beginning, to a figure shrouded in the same golden light. He was telling the truth. All of it. The realization was a tectonic shift in his soul. The notebook in his mind, filled with quirk analysis, now had an entire new, terrifying, beautiful volume torn open and thrust upon it. Toshinori Yagi pulled his hood lower, tears cutting tracks through the dust on his cheeks. He had come to bear witness, and he had seen a miracle. And a condemnation. The system he had upheld had just been revealed as a gaudy, fragile shell built over a well of profound, shared pain. Naruto hadn't just shown them a new power, he had held up a mirror to their collective soul, and for a second, made them all look. A strong desire, for the world to understand what was done to them. To fit the unfittable into a narrative. The ripple effect, 72 hours later. 1. The media and public sphere, the footage was inescapable. Edited, replayed, analyzed frame by frame. The Uzumaki revelation dominated everything. Pundits fractured into camps. The Salvationists framed it as a spiritual awakening, a call to dismantle the corrupt hero industrial complex. Their symbol was the paused image of Naruto, glowing, hand outstretched. The contamination theorists warned of a psychic attack, a mass hallucination engineered by a hostile, extra-dimensional entity. Their symbol was the collapsed Naruto, a wolf in sheep's clothing finally defeated. The pragmatists focused on the practical, a new, overwhelming power type that nullified quirks and required a new global security paradigm. The public was reeling. Polls showed trust in the Hero Commission had plummeted. Reports of people with undesirable, or villainous, quirks coming out of hiding, emboldened by the feeling of being seen, skyrocketed. So did hate crimes against them by those terrified of the new uncertainty. 2. The Hero Public Safety Commission, it was in freefall. With Makoto Shigaraki missing and presumed dead, and the disastrous, public failure of the Takoba operation, a power struggle erupted. The hardliners, led by surviving hawks, pushed for the immediate designation of chakra as a prohibited energy source and the arrest of anyone exhibiting related phenomena. The reformers, a minority silenced for years, argued for study, for outreach, for understanding that the old methods were obsolete. Their only leverage was the undeniable fact that the Uzumaki empathy wave had resulted in 0 civilian casualties and had temporarily neutralized a major villain attack, a better outcome than any hero operation on record. 3. Yue High School, the campus was a pressure cooker. The students of Class 1A were heroes in training who had just had the foundation of heroism kicked out from under them. Mandatory counseling sessions were ignored or met with stony silence. Bakugo had been rendered unnervingly quiet. He wasn't training. He wasn't yelling. He sat in his room, replaying the feeling of his explosion being absorbed, of the profound, unwanted understanding that washed over him, a glimpse of his own raging loneliness reflected back, not with scorn, but with pity. It was the ultimate insult. Todoroki had requested a leave of absence. Endeavor, locked in his own estate and refusing all comments, had not objected. Shoto was last seen heading towards the part of the city where the Meta-Liberation Army's wounded had been taken, a confused need to see the other side driving him. Yayorozu was creating models, endless, intricate models of the energy dispersion patterns from the beach, trying to weaponize understanding. She'd made a device that could mimic a fraction of the empathetic pulse, but it just made people nauseous. The real thing was not physics. It was metaphysics. Midoriya was gone. Not physically. He attended classes. But his mind was 1,000 miles away, deep in the secret history of One for All, cross-referencing every fragment with what he now knew. He had begun secretly trying to channel his power not through his limbs, but through his core, trying to feel the connection to its source. It resulted in broken fingers and a dawning, terrifying hypothesis. One for All wasn't just a quirk. It was a chakra lineage. A sacred, bastardized heirloom. Aizawa found him in the gym one night, hand bandaged, staring at a shattered training dummy. "You're going to break yourself, problem child." Midoriya did in turn. "He said our world was built on a grave. All Might confirmed it. What if One for All is the headstone? Or the flower that grew from it?" Aizawa had no answer. He just put a hand on Midoriya's shoulder, a rare gesture. "The world needs heroes who can ask those questions. It doesn't need martyrs who break before they find the answers." 4. The underworld, the League of Villains, had disintegrated. Not by force, but by revelation. Twice was found sobbing in an alley, his duplicates arguing with each other about what was real. Spinner had simply walked away, his fanatical zeal replaced by a hollow confusion. Mr. Compress had vanished. Tamura, Shigaraki, and Dabi were holed up in a derelict building. Tamura hadn't stopped scratching. The decaying itch was now a symphony of memory, the smell of latex gloves, the sound of a children's song, the feeling of the golden wave that felt like the opposite of decay, like a desperate, futile attempt to put something back together. It hurt. Tamura whispered, not to Dabi, but to the empty air where Sensei's voice usually was. Dabi stared at his hands, the staples pulling at his skin. The blue flames were dormant. He'd felt the cold, but worse, he'd felt the ghost of a warmth that wasn't his father's hellfire, but a simpler, domestic warmth. It was a taunt. He showed us a door, Dabi muttered. Just to remind us we're locked in. 5. The hidden refuge. Between dimensions, in a featureless, gray plane of nothingness that served as a way station, Sasuke had laid Naruto on a bedroll. The Hokage was burning with a fever, his chakra system in turmoil. Channeling the land's dramatic echo had been like drinking poison to show someone else it was poison. Kurama's growl was a constant, worried rumble in their shared space. Foolish, sentimental idiot. You can't heal a world by making it feel its own sickness. You'll burn out your own mind. Sasuke, using his Rinnegan to stabilize the erratic chakra flows, was analytical. He didn't just make them feel it. He offered a contrast. A memory of wholeness. For a second, he gave them what their quirks fractured, a sense of shared existence. He looked down at his friend's pale face. It was a masterstroke. And it may have killed him. The backlash is profound. His chakra is trying to reconcile with the corrupted echo he absorbed. Can you fix it? Kurama's concern was barely masked. I can stabilize him. But the healing, that's up to him. And this world. Sasuke's lone eye narrowed. The one with the flaming hair and the dead eyes. He was there. The vessel of the other Kyuubi's will. He is the linchpin. What are you planning, Uchiha? A conversation, Sasuke said, his voice icy. While he sleeps, I will assess the damage. And I will find the source of the corruption. This all for one. And I will determine if he is a man to be reasoned with, or a tumor to be cut out. The consequence, a world unmoored. The tension was no longer about capturing a rogue element. It was about identity. The Uzumaki event had thrown the very concept of quirk into question. If all powers were fragmented reflections of a primal, connectable energy, then what did that make heroes? Glorified shards of a broken mirror? What did it make villains? Shattered pieces thrown at the wall in rage? A new, silent fear crept into the halls of power. What if Naruto Uzumaki woke up? And what if he decided to do more than give a lesson? What if he decided to fix things his way? In a secure hospital room, Mirage stared at the ceiling, sensors monitoring her brain activity. She had been closest to the pulse. The commissioned doctors called it empathic overload. She called it clarity. Her shadow quirk, always a separate, cold thing, had felt, for a moment, like an extension of her own body. She had felt connected to every other shadow in the vicinity. It was terrifying. It was beautiful. She had reported none of this to her debriefers. On a monitor in her room, the news played a clip of a press conference. The new, acting head of the commission, a woman with a stern face, was speaking. While the phenomenon was unprecedented, our priority remains the safety and stability of our society. We are forming a special task force, including leading scientists and ethicists, to study the so-called chakra energy. Until its nature is fully understood and deemed safe, any individual demonstrating such abilities will be considered a potential threat and detained for protective study. Mirage turned the screen off. Protective study. A gilded cage for the sun. She knew, with cold certainty, that when, if, Naruto returned, the response would not be dialogue. It would be annihilation. The system could not tolerate a power it could not categorize, control, or commercialize. And in the void left by the faltering hero system, other forces began to stir. From the shadows of the Meta Liberation Army's wreckage, a new, more virulent strain of ideology was brewing, one that saw Naruto not as a symbol of liberation, but as proof of a coming racial hierarchy, those with pure chakra potential versus those with corrupted quirks. Chapter 10, The Shadow's Gambit. The void between dimensions was a sensory deprivation chamber for the soul. Here, there was no sound, no light, no smell, only the faint, gray hum of non-existence. It was the perfect place for a coma, or a conversation with the demon fox. Naruto's physical form lay still, but his inner world was a storm. Visions of the Kyuubi's blue-flamed counterpart lashed against the shores of his consciousness, mixed with the screaming, fragmented echoes of 1,000 quirks, 1,000 lonely lives he'd briefly connected to. He was a lightning rod, and he'd taken the full, grounding strike of a world's spiritual trauma. Too much, you took in too much. Kurama's voice was a low, steady rumble, a bulwark against the psychic storm. You've always been a container for the world's hatred. But this is a different kind of poison. This is grief given form. In the haze, Naruto's will stirred. They felt it, they all felt it. For a second, they remembered what it was like to not be alone. And now they're more terrified than ever, Kurama retorted, but the bite was gone, replaced by a grudging, worried respect. You showed a starving man a feast and then vanished. What do you think happens next? They find their own food. A naive. Before the fox could finish, a cold, precise presence cut through the tumult. Sasuke, using a subtle genjutsu link, projected his consciousness into the shared mental space. He stood, a figure of dark calm amidst the golden and red chaos. His chakra pathways are stabilizing, Sasuke stated, his Rinnegan eye in this mental landscape a spinning, absorbing vortex. But the foreign energy is interwoven. He won't wake until his system either assimilates or purges it. It could take days. Or years. Uchiha. What is your plan? Kurama demanded, turning his massive head. The source of the corruption is active, Sasuke said, ignoring the fox's tone. While he sleeps, the rot spreads. The one called All for One is moving. He perceives Naruto's act not as a lesson, but as a declaration of war against his philosophy of dominion. So we find him and kill him, Kurama growled. Simple. Simple is rarely correct, Sasuke said, his gaze fixed on the tossing, feverish form of Naruto's spirit. This world's sickness is not one man. It is the foundational myth they've built upon, power as possession. All for One is merely the most cancerous expression of it. But to cut him out now, in secret, changes nothing. The system would simply produce another. Then what? Kurama snarled, frustration making his chakra flare. We provide a better enemy, Sasuke said, a ruthless logic in his eyes. One that forces the fractured pieces of this world to choose. To remember the connection they felt, if only to survive. A strong desire, Sasuke's, to force evolution. To create a crucible where this world's heroism is either reforged or proven worthless. In the world of noise and fear, Mizurufu, and indeed the entire country, was a patient in shock. The Uzumaki calm had been replaced by the Uzumaki anxiety. The shared moment of empathy was now analyzed, commodified, and weaponized. Conspiracy theories blossomed like black flowers. Reported quirk malfunctions spiked. People who had felt the harmonizing pulse now found their abilities erratic, as if yearning for a lost harmony. It was in this climate of psychic instability that All for One made his move. He didn't send an army. He sent a symptom. The first attack was in a mid-tier city, Hosu. Not a rampage, but a targeted erasure. A new Hyenomu, codenamed Silencer, by the panicked authorities, appeared. It was sleek, humanoid, with a smooth, featureless face save for a mouth lined with crystalline teeth. It did not smash buildings. It did not kill civilians indiscriminately. It hunted heroes. Its power was a localized, directional wave that didn't suppress quirks, it scrambled them. When the wave hit, the hero's quirk factor would go into violent feedback, causing agonizing physical recoil. A hero who could create steel from her skin found it growing inward, piercing her organs. A speedster's legs twisted like pretzels as his own tendons rebelled. It was a brutal, surgical demonstration. Your power is not yours. It is a faulty instrument, and I have the tuning fork that breaks it. The Silencer took no pleasure. It simply moved from hero to hero, a walking nullfield, leaving behind broken, weeping men and women who had defined their entire lives by an ability that had just betrayed them. The public watched, horror-struck, as their protectors were dismantled not by overwhelming force, but by insidious precision. The message was clear: the era of the quirk-based hero is over. Your foundation is sand. A dangerous obstacle, an enemy that cannot be fought with the power that defines you. Yue, once more a war room. The staff and the remaining top pro heroes were gathered. The footage from Hosa played on screen, silent save for the screams of the heroes. The air was thick with dread. Endeavor, his flames a low, sullen simmer, broke the silence. We must mobilize every S-class hero. Overwhelm it with sheer, coordinated force before it can activate its wave. And if its wave area is larger than we think? Eraserhead's voice was hollow. Or if there are more of them? This isn't a fight. It's a statement. He's proving Uzumaki's point for him. Do not speak that name here, a commission liaison barked. This is the work of a villain, exploiting the instability that man created. He created the instability by revealing a truth. The voice was young, shaky, but fierce. All eyes turned to Midoriya, who had spoken without raising his hand. He stood, his body trembling but his eyes blazing. That Nomu, it's attacking the disconnect. The disconnect between the person and the quirk that Naruto showed us. All for One is using a twisted version of the same understanding. We can't fight it by just being stronger heroes. We have to be something else. And what would that be, child? The liaison sneered. Midoriya didn't have an answer. But the question hung in the room, poisonous and vital. A risky decision by the system, to double down on the old ways, to reject the uncomfortable revelation. The commission's order was handed down. A coalition of top heroes, led by Endeavor, would engage the Silencer in a neutral zone. Civilians were evacuated. It was to be a classic, heroic showdown. The media, desperate for a return to normalcy, dubbed it the clash to restore order. Sasuke's investigation. While the world focused on Hosu, Sasuke moved through the underbelly like a ghost. His Rinnegan allowed him to perceive the flow of life forces, and the trail of All for One's operations was a scar of twisted, stagnant energy against the vibrant, chaotic backdrop of the city. He found the hidden clinics where Noma were grafted, the warehouses storing quirk-enhancing drugs, all protected by loyalists who were little more than hollow shells, their wills subsumed. He didn't engage. He observed. He learned of the doctor, of the loyalty to the great liberator, of the belief that quirks were property to be collected and optimized. It was a dark mirror to his own clan's obsession with power, to the shinobi world's history of bloodline limits and stolen eyes. He finally found the heart of the operation, a fortified, subterranean medical facility. And there, through a one-way observation window, he saw him. All for one, connected to a forest of tubes and monitors, a king in a kingdom of sterile decay. And standing before him, receiving instruction, was Tamura Shigaraki. The young man's demeanor was different. The manic energy was gone, replaced by a chilling, focused stillness. The golden wave had scoured away the fracturing madness, leaving behind a cold, hard core of nihilism. He was being remade, not as a chaotic tool, but as a deliberate scalpel. The silencer is a test, Tamura. All for One's voice wheezed through speakers. It shows the heroes their helplessness. But to truly break them, they must see their hope extinguished. The symbol of their fleeting connection must be shown to be weak, a lie. Uzumaki, Tamura stated, no longer scratching. His voice was flat. He sleeps. But his companion, the one-eyed one, is active. He is watching us. Let him watch. Let him see the next phase. We will draw out the children, the next generation he tried to inspire. We will break them in front of the world. And then, we will offer the masses a choice, eternal, fractious fear, or the peaceful, predictable order of my embrace. Sasuke's eye narrowed. A public massacre of students. It was a move designed to shatter any lingering faith in the future, to make Naruto's moment of connection seem like a cruel joke. It was also a perfect trap. Sasuke's decision, to not attack the head of the snake, but to intercept the strike. To force the conflict into the open on his terms. He needed the heroes, fractured as they were. And he needed the one piece that didn't fit their system, the boy with the chakra lineage. The clash to restore order. A neutral zone. It was a barren, designated disaster training ground. Endeavor, Mirko, Ryukyu, and a dozen others faced the silencer. The air crackled with anticipation. The world watched. The Noma stood, unmoving. Endeavor attacked first. Hellfire curtain! A wall of flame meant to encircle and incinerate. The silencer opened its mouth. A visible, shimmering pulse, silent and colorless, radiated outward. It met the flames. And the flames screamed. Not metaphorically. The very energy of Endeavor's quirk writhed, bucking his control, flaring back towards him in a chaotic burst. He was forced to cut it off, staggering back, his own fire having scorched his armor. Mirko lunged, her legendary legs a blur. The pulse hit her mid-leap. Her enhanced muscles, the product of her rabbit quirk, seized. She fell from the air, gasping in pain as her own strength threatened to tear her ligaments. One by one, the hero's greatest assets were turned against them. Ryukyu's dragon form shuddered and shrank involuntarily. Kamui Wood's branches grew inward, binding him. It was a systematic, humiliating deconstruction. The silencer began to walk forward, towards the crippled Endeavor. Its purpose was clear, to break the number one in front of the world. As Endeavor struggled to rise, a green lightning bolt shot across the field. Smash! Midoriya, moving faster than he should have been able, tackled Endeavor out of the path of the scrambling wave. He'd been watching from a sanctioned observation post. He'd disobeyed. Again. You fool! Endeavor coughed. The silencer's blank face turned to Midoriya. It analyzed. Its wave targeted the boy. Midoriya braced, one for all crackling around him. The wave hit. And sputtered. It wasn't a complete nullification. Midoriya cried out, feeling one for all buck and writhe inside him like a live wire. It was agonizing. But it didn't turn inward. The legacy quirk, the chakra lineage, resisted the total scrambling. It was unstable, painful, but it held. The silencer paused, its programming assessing the anomaly. From the shadows at the edge of the field, a figure stepped out. Sasuke. He made no dramatic entrance. He simply appeared, as if he'd been there all along. Interesting, he said, his voice carrying without effort. Your tool is designed to break fragmented power. It is less effective against something that remembers its original, unified nature. He looked at the panting, pain-racked Midoriya. You hold the dying ember of the true power. You are the proof of his lesson. He then addressed the cameras, the heroes, the world. The one you call All for One plans to execute the next generation of heroes at UA within 24 hours. He believes it will end your hope. Sasuke's Rinnegan began to glow. He is wrong. Your hope is not in your quirks. It never was. It is in your will to protect each other, even when your tools are broken. Even when you are broken. He raised a hand towards the confused silencer. This is a symptom. I will remove it. The disease, you must face yourselves. A Minota Jikara. Space swapped. The silencer was suddenly 10 feet to the left, its own scrambling wave now aimed at empty air. In the same instant, Sasuke was where it had been. His hand, crackling with black Chidori flames, thrust forward, not at the Noma's body, but at the space around it. Rinnegan Universal Pull. The very air and ground around the silencer imploded with irresistible gravity, compressing it into a sphere of shattered flesh and machinery the size of a basketball. There was no explosion. Just a sickening crunch. Then silence. Sasuke let the ruined sphere drop to the dirt. He looked at the stunned, wounded heroes, at the cameras. He is coming for your children. You can hide behind your broken rules, or you can remember what you felt on the beach. The choice is now. He sleeps, Sasuke said, glancing towards the sky, as if seeing the dimensional void. But I do not. In a swirl of space-time ninjutsu, he was gone. Chapter 11, The Will to Protect. The silence after Sasuke's departure was more devastating than any explosion. On the scarred training ground, the broken heroes stared at the crushed sphere that was once the silencer. The air still hummed with the psychic aftershock of their own quirks turning against them. Mirko panted on the ground, her legs trembling with residual spasms. Endeavor's armor was blackened by his own fire. And Midoriya knelt in the dirt, cradling his right arm. It wasn't broken from overuse this time. It was a network of angry, spiraling red lines, as if his own veins had rebelled and tried to crawl out of his skin. The silencer's wave hadn't just hurt, it had tried to unravel one for all from the inside. The pain was a white-hot drill in his bones, but worse was the silence. The usual comforting, electric hum of the legacy within him was now a staticky, pain whine. For the first time since receiving it, the power felt sick. The boy is compromised, a commissioned medic stated, moving to pull Midoriya away. He needs immediate quarantine. That energy interference could be contagious. Don't touch him. The voice was raspy, raw from smoke, but it held undeniable authority. Endeavor stood, forcing his battered body upright. He looked at Midoriya, not with his usual disdain, but with the cold, assessing gaze of a veteran who has just seen the battle lines redrawn. He resisted it. However briefly. That makes him an asset, not a contaminant. On the screens around the world, the image was frozen, the broken heroes, the crushed Noma, the lone, defiant student, and the chilling warning hanging in the air. He is coming for your children. A strong desire, collective, primal to protect the next generation. The instinct runs deeper than rules, deeper than quirks. The Commission's bunker was a frenzy of conflicting orders. Evacuate UA? Fortify it? Use it as bait? The acting director, a stern woman named Kana, watched the panic. She had been a hero once, before politics. She remembered the weight of the costume. She also remembered the stifling weight of the rules. She made a call. Not to the military. Not to the other commission heads. She called Principal Niza. Your school is ground zero, Niza. The villain's target is clear. What are your contingency plans? Niza's cheerful voice was gone, replaced by a chilling, intellectual calm. Our plans were built on the assumption of quirk-based warfare. Those are now obsolete. Our new plan is simpler, we defend. Not the building. The idea. What idea? That the future is worth fighting for, even with broken tools. Niza paused. We will not evacuate. We will make our stand here. And we would welcome any hero who fights not for the rules, but for the people inside. Yue High, fortress of a new idea. The gates, once symbols of proud exclusivity, were welded shut and reinforced by Cementous's last, painstaking efforts before his quirk had become too unstable to use safely. The energy barrier, designed to stop physical and quirk-based assaults, hummed at half strength, its frequency randomly fluctuating. Inside, the atmosphere was a surreal blend of a sleepover and a siege. Class 1A and 1B were gathered in the main hall, not in their costumes, but in practical gear. Their teachers, Aizawa, Vlad King, Midnight, Present Mike, stood before them, not as invincible mentors, but as fellow soldiers with potentially faulty weapons. Your quirks are not to be trusted, Aizawa stated bluntly, his eyes bloodshot. The enemy has a method of turning them against you. Using them may be more dangerous than not. He held up a simple combat knife. You will rely on hand-to-hand, on support equipment, on strategy, and on each other. The objective is not victory in the field. It is survival. It is protecting each other until the professional heroes can neutralize the threat. Bakugo stood apart, arms crossed. He hadn't spoken since returning from the sanctioned observation of the failed hero clash. The arrogant fury was gone, sandblasted away by the golden wave and the sight of Endeavor's helplessness. In its place was a cold, focused intensity. He was sharpening a makeshift trench knife against a piece of rubble, the scrape 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 a metronome in the nervous quiet. Todoroki had returned. He stood beside Midoriya, who was sitting against a wall, his bandaged arm in a sling. Shoto placed a hand on his friend's shoulder, a gesture of solid, wordless support. He had seen the other side. He knew what was coming. Yaoyorozu was distributing items from a large duffel bag, not creations from her quirk, but things she had physically made in the workshop over the last frantic hours, reinforced batons, smoke pellets, communicators with closed channels. My quirk is too volatile to risk, she explained, her voice steady. But my knowledge isn't. Ida chopped the air, but the motion was slower, more deliberate. Our duty is to our classmates and to our teachers. We will form a coordinated defense. Speed may still be of use, but we must be cautious. Uraraka nodded, her face pale but determined. She touched the weights on her wrists. Without her zero gravity, they were just heavy bracelets. Right. We lift each other up. The old-fashioned way. A risky decision by the institution, to discard the very thing that defines them, quirks, and trust in something older and more fundamental. The approaching shadow. They did not come with stealth. They came with a statement. A massive, swirling black and purple warp gate opened in the sky above the Yui sports field, visible to every camera trained on the school. From it descended not a horde but a procession. Tamura Shigaraki walked first. He was different. The tattered coat was gone, replaced by a sleek, black bodysuit. His hands were covered by armored gauntlets. The frantic energy was distilled into a lethal, serene purpose. Behind him walked Dabi, his blue flames burning with a colder, more controlled hue. Then Spinner, Mr. Compress, and a handful of new, disciplined-looking lieutenants. And behind them, lumbering onto the field, came the new horror. The Absorber. It was a nightmare of fused biology and machine, twice the size of the silencer. Its skin was a dark, porous stone. Multiple arms ended in syringe-like claws. But its centerpiece was the gaping maw on its chest, ringed with bioluminescent nodes that pulsed with a hungry, violet light. Tamura stopped in the center of the field. He looked up at the main building, knowing the cameras were watching, knowing the heroes and children inside were listening. We're here for the final exam, he said, his voice calm, amplified by a speaker on his collar. The subject is reality. You were taught a fairy tale, that power plus a license equals heroism. That feeling a little connected changes anything. He gestured to the Absorber. This is the truth. Power is consumption. Will is fuel. Your golden man gave you a taste of something sweet. We're here to show you what happens when something stronger finds that sweetness, and eats it. He pointed a gauntlet finger at the building. Send out your heroes. Send out your students. Let them feel their brave, bonding spirits rise up. Let them have their moment of unity. A cruel, dead smile touched his lips. And then we will consume it. We will turn their hope into our strength, live on television. The death of an ideal. No more symbols. No more lies. Just the empty, quiet piece of nothing left to believe in. A dangerous obstacle, an enemy that feeds on the very response, courage, unity, will, that defiance requires. Inside the hall, the students heard every word. A cold, soul-deep dread settled over them. How do you fight something that gets stronger the harder you try? Midoriya pushed himself to his feet, wincing. The static in his bones was a scream. He's wrong. All eyes turned to him. What we felt on the beach, it wasn't just a feeling. It was a memory. A memory of how things are supposed to be. That connection, it's not a weakness. It's a circuit. He looked at his injured arm, then at his classmates. He wants us to be afraid to use it. Afraid to feel it. Because if we do, if we really, truly connect, not just feel it, but act on it, maybe. Maybe what, Deku? Bakugo's voice cut through, not with anger, but with stark demand. Midoriya met his eyes. Maybe we become something his monster can't digest. The siege begins. The pros made the first move. Not from inside, but from outside. Endeavor, Mirko, a battered but determined edge shot, and others who had answered Nisa's call hit the league's flanks. It was a diversion, a sacrifice play. They knew their quirks were liabilities, but they used them anyway, drawing fire, trying to pull the Absorber's attention. It worked, partially. Dabi's flames met Endeavor's in a cataclysmic clash. Spinner engaged Mirko in a brutal melee, But Tamura didn't move. His eyes were on the school doors. They opened. Not to release a wave of superpowered students. A single class walked out, in a tight phalanx. No flashy powers activated. They held batons, shields, capture wires. They moved with a discipline that spoke of desperate training. Aizawa led them, his capture scarf dangling. His erasure was useless against Denoma, and risky to use on his own students if their quirks misfired. He was here as a fighter, period. Tamura almost looked disappointed. Really? This is your answer? Pathetic little soldiers? The absorber's chest maw glowed. It could sense their determination, their fear, their camaraderie. It was a faint soup, but appetizing. It took a step forward. Now! Aizawa barked. The students didn't charge. They executed a maneuver. Bakugo and Ida, using raw speed and explosive jumps, not full quirk use, but the physical enhancers still worked at a base level, flanked left and right, drawing the Noma's gaze. At the same moment, Todoroki and Uraraka led a group forward, not attacking, but scattering caltrops and smoke screens. It was smart. It was brave. It was utterly, heartbreakingly human. And it fed the beast. The absorber maw pulsed brighter. It inhaled, and a visible shimmer, like a heat haze, was pulled from the charging students. Todoroki stumbled, a wave of nauseating emptiness hitting him. Uraraka cried out, feeling a sudden, profound loneliness. Their will, their courage, was being physically siphoned. The Noma grew. Its stone skin gleamed. One of its syringed arms lashed out, moving faster than before, and smashed into Ida's side, sending him crashing into a wall. It's working! Their spirit makes it stronger! Mr. Compress cackled. Tamura watched, his dead smile returning. See? The harder you try, the more you lose. Just give up. It's easier. From the rooftop, a single figure leapt. Not a hero. Sasuke landed silently between the students and the absorber. He assessed the creature with his Rinnegan. A psychic vampire. It consumes life force, emotional energy. Crude. He looked back at the panting, despairing students. Your unity is a weapon. But you are wielding it like a club. It must be a blade. We can't use our quirks, Jiro yelled, her earphone jacks coiled uselessly at her neck. I'm not talking about quirks, Sasuke said, his voice like steel. I am talking about chakra. The boy with the injured arm. He holds a spark. The rest of you, you have echoes. Fragments. Alone, they are nothing. Together, focused by a common will. He looked at Midoriya, who was struggling forward, his green eyes wide with understanding and pain. You can be a lens. The consequence, a desperate, untested gamble with their very souls. Midoriya understood. One for all wasn't just power to be used. It was a connection to be shared. But it was damaged, screaming in pain. To try and use it as a focus, it might shatter him completely. He looked at his friends, at Ochako's determined tears, at Tenya pushing himself up, at Shoto's steady gaze, at even Bakugo's fierce, scowling focus. He made a choice. He stumbled to the front, ignoring Aizawa's warning shout. He faced the absorber, which was now turning its hungry gaze on him, sensing the potent, pained energy within. Everyone! Midoriya gasped, holding out his good hand. Don't think about your quirk. Don't think about fighting. Think about why you're here. Who you're protecting. The person next to you. And give that feeling to me. It was insane. It was pure instinct. Bakugo was the first. With a grunt of sheer frustration, he slapped his hand onto Midoriya's outstretched shoulder. Not to attack. To connect. Don't you dare lose, you damn nerd! Todoroki placed his right hand on Midoriya's other shoulder, his left on Bakugo's back, forming a chain. The ice isn't working. But I am. Uraraka grabbed Todoroki's arm, Ida grabbed hers, Yayorozu, Jiro, Kirishima, one by one, the entire class, teachers included, formed a physical chain, their hands on each other's shoulders or backs, a circuit of human will. The absorber sensed a surge. It wasn't scattered courage anymore. It was a converging river. It roared in anticipation and unleashed its full siphoning wave. The violet haze hit them. And this time, it didn't pull away disparate emotions. It met a unified field. Midoriya screamed. One for all, the damaged chakra lineage, was forced to become a conduit. He felt every fear, every hope, every stubborn, loving, furious reason to fight from his friends flow into him. It was agony. It was ecstasy. It was too much. His body glowed, not with green lightning, but with an unstable, brilliant white gold light, shot through with cracks of pain. Sasuke watched, his Rinnegan analyzing. The vessel is too weak. The power is too raw. It will annihilate him. But it didn't. Because from within the torrent, another presence stirred. Not in Midoriya. In the chain itself. In the void, Naruto's eyes shot open. He didn't waken his body. His consciousness, attuned to the specific frequency of true, desperate, collective will, was pulled through the residual connections he'd forged days before. He became a ghost in the circuit. I'm here, his voice echoed in the shared space of their united will. You're not alone. His presence acted as a governor. A master harmonizer. The chaotic, painful surge of collective will flowing through Midoriya smoothed, focused, and amplified. The white-gold light stabilized, becoming a pure, radiant pillar erupting from the linked students, pushing back the absorber's violet wave. The Noma shrieked, not in hunger, but in pain. It was designed to consume fragmented emotional energy. This was not fragmented. This was a coherent, blazing beam of collective human spirit, refined and directed by a Hokage's soul. The light hit the absorber's chest maw. There was no explosion. The creature simply stiffened. The hungry glow in its maw flickered, reversed, and then turned inward. It was force-fed a meal of pure, undiluted empathy, hope, and stubborn love, a poison to its nature. It collapsed, not into dust, but into an inert, glassy statue, its feeding organs crystallized from the inside out. The golden pillar faded. The chain broke as students slumped to the ground, exhausted, weeping, but whole. Midoriya fell to his knees, his injured arm now laced with glowing gold scars instead of angry red lines. The static was gone. In its place was a deep, resonant hum of connection, faint but permanent. Tamura Shigaraki stared, his dead calm finally shattered. His perfect weapon, designed to devour hope, had been killed by it. The logic of his world cracked. No, that's not how it works. Sasuke looked from the fallen students to Tamura. You were taught that power is to take. They just learned that power is to give. You are a relic. He took a step forward, his Rinnegan spinning. The real battle was about to begin. But high above, in the command center of the hovering Commission airship, Director Kana watched the glowing pillar on her screen. Her finger hovered over a different console. Not a weapon. A broadcast switch. Patch me through to every channel, she said, her voice firm. It's time to tell a new story. Chapter 12, The Seventh Fire. The golden light that split the sky over Yuri did not crash land with the dignity of a savior. It sputtered, flickered like a dying candle in a gale, and deposited Naruto Uzumaki in a heap of limbs and orange fabric at the edge of the scarred sports field. He landed with a grunt, face first in the dirt, a far cry from the glowing deity of Takoba Beach. He pushed himself up, spitting out sand. He was pale, swaying, his chakra reserves scraping the bottom of the barrel. But his eyes, when they found the scene before him, were clear. He saw the glassy, inert form of the absorber. He saw his students, the thought came unbidden, scattered and exhausted but alive, their spirits woven together with a new, fragile thread of golden resonance. He saw Sasuke, a lone dark pillar advancing on a seething Tamura Shigaraki. He saw the pro-heroes, battered and quirk-weary, regrouping at the periphery. And he felt it all, the simmering pain in the earth, the fractured fear in the air, the desperate, newborn hope clinging to the hearts of the young. This, he thought, is the wound. Open, raw, and ready to be healed or infected. A strong desire, to finish what he started. Not with a final lesson, but with a first step. Sasuke didn't glance back. He sensed Naruto's chaotic arrival, the familiar, stubborn chakra spark flickering weakly. You're late. And you look terrible. Miss me, team? Naruto rasped, a ghost of his old grin touching his lips as he stumbled to his feet. Tamura Shigaraki ignored the new arrival for a moment, his wide, red eyes fixed on the crystallized absorber. His hands, clad in their armored gauntlets, flexed. It shouldn't have broken. Hope is weak. It's a lie. Sensei said. Your sensei is a parasite who feeds on broken things. Sasuke stated, his voice colder than Todoroki's ice. He saw a world of fractured power and built his kingdom in the cracks. He cannot comprehend unity because he has never felt it. He can only steal its pieces. Shut up! Tamura screamed, the dead calm shattering into familiar, ragged fury. He lunged, not at Sasuke, but at the nearest cluster of students, Uraraka and Azuri, who were helping a dazed Ida. His decay quirk crackled to life around his gauntlet fingers. I'll show you fractured! I'll reduce your precious unity to dust! He never reached them. A blur of orange intersected his path. Naruto moved, not with the impossible speed of before, but with the desperate, gritty speed of a brawler who's been in one too many alley fights. He didn't use a fancy jutsu. He tackled Tamura around the waist, driving him away from the students and into the dirt. It was a messy, graceless impact. Tamura's decay lashed out, and Naruto hissed as the edge of his jacket sleeve disintegrated, the skin beneath reddening and cracking. But he held on, pinning Tamura's gauntlet hands to the ground with sheer, stubborn weight. "Get off!" Tamura snarled, thrashing. Naruto looked down into the young man's eyes, seeing not a monster, but the lonely, furious child from his vision. The one who had felt the golden wave and recoiled from its terrible kindness. "I felt it too, you know," Naruto grunted, his face inches from Tamura's. "The loneliness. The rage. The feeling that the whole world is a stupid, painful joke. I made friends with the demon inside me. You let yours become your master." "You don't know anything," Tamura spat. "I know your sensei is using your pain to feed his own emptiness," Naruto said, his voice low, intense. "He doesn't want to fix this world. He wants to own its corpse. Is that what you want? To be the king of a graveyard?" For a split second, Tamura's struggle stilled. The words found a chink in the armor of nihilism. But a lifetime of grooming, of twisted validation, was a powerful scar. His eyes hardened. "It's better than being a slave in their happy lie." He activated his quirk at full power. The decay spread from his gauntlets, eating into the earth, racing up Naruto's arms. A risky decision, to not fight the power, but the pain behind it. Naruto didn't let go. Instead, he did something profoundly stupid, profoundly Naruto. He flared the barest whisper of his chakra, not to attack, not to defend, but to emote. He pushed a single, pure feeling through the point of contact, through the decaying connection, understanding. Not pity. Not forgiveness. The simple, weary understanding of one orphan to another. Tamura stiffened. The decay stuttered. The sensation was alien, intrusive. It wasn't the overwhelming golden wave of the beach. It was a targeted, personal acknowledgement of his core truth. "I see you're hurt. I have been there." It was a vulnerability. And in that moment of vulnerability, Sasuke struck. Not with a killing blow. With a severing one. His body flickered past in a blur of black. His hand, glowing with the purple energy of the Rinnegan's human path, didn't touch Tamura's body. It passed through the air just above his chest, targeting not his soul, but the thick, cancerous tether of energy Sasuke's eye could see, the psychic leash connecting Tamura to All for One. There was a silent, spiritual snap. Tamura screamed, a raw, soul-deep sound that had nothing to do with physical pain. He felt a connection he hadn't even known was there suddenly vanish, leaving a cold, silent void in his mind where a fatherly, commanding presence had always lived. The decay quirk cut off completely. Naruto rolled off him, clutching his decaying forearms, breathing heavily. Tamura lay on his back, staring at the sky, trembling. "Sensei. He's gone from your head," Sasuke said, standing over him, his expression unreadable. "The voice is yours now. See what you do with it." The remaining league members stared, leaderless. Dalby watched with cold, calculating eyes, but made no move. The fight had gone out of them. The symbol of their rebellion was broken, not by force, but by, what? Therapy? But the true enemy was not finished. The ground beneath Yui began to tremble. Not from an explosion, but from a deep, resonant pull. A monstrous suction, coming from everywhere and nowhere. The air grew heavy, thick, difficult to breathe. The light seemed to dim, not from shadow, but from a draining of vitality. From every screen still broadcasting, from every speaker, a voice wheezed forth, amplified and terrible. All for One, no longer content to puppet from the shadows. A touching display. The broken child comforted. The leash cut. How very heroic. The voice was a dry rustle of leaves, full of amused contempt. But you have merely pruned a branch. The root remains. And the root is hungry. The ground in the center of the sports field erupted. Not with debris, but with a geyser of dark energy, a visible, pouring stream of stolen quirk essence, hatred, pain, and ambition. It coalesced into a form, a massive, shifting horror of mismatched limbs, exposed organs held in cages of bone, and a familiar, smiling, ruined face at its center. This was no Noma. This was All for One's true body, augmented over a century into a cathedral of stolen power. He had transplanted himself, using the last of his vast resources, to the battlefield. He was done with proxies. The final, dangerous obstacle, not a villain with a plan, but the embodied idea of power as possession. A walking, talking void that consumes. You speak of connection, Uzumaki. The monstrous form boomed, 100 stolen voice quirks harmonizing into a deafening chorus. I am the ultimate connection. Every quirk I hold is a life I have touched, a power I have made my own. I am the network. You offer a sharing of weakness. I offer the sovereignty of strength. Look at your heroes. Broken by their own gifts. Look at your children, forced to fight like common animals. This is your better way. Pathetic. His presence was a physical weight of despair. The fragile, golden resonance among the students flickered under the oppressive aura. Even Naruto felt it, a gravitational pull of nihilism that threatened to snuff out his remaining flame. Endeavor stepped forward, flames guttering weakly on his shoulders. "We will stop you. Together." "Together?" All for one laughed, the sound like grinding stones. "Your together is a desperate huddle. Mine is an empire within my flesh." He raised a conglomerate limb, and a dozen different energy attacks, lasers, ice, lightning, kinetic blasts, simultaneously charged around it, a terrifying display of integrated, stolen power. "I will erase this school, your symbol, and your naive dream from the face of the earth. And from the silence that follows, a new, orderly world will be born. One where power is not wasted on heart, but is rightfully owned." He unleashed the barrage. It wasn't aimed at any one person. It was a storm of annihilation meant to vaporize the entire central field, students and heroes alike. There was no time for complex strategy. No time for a heartfelt speech. There was only instinct. Naruto and Sasuke moved as one. They didn't confer. They didn't need to. Decades of fighting side by side, of being two halves of a whole, translated into perfect, wordless synergy. Sasuke's Rinnegan glowed. "Shinra Tensei!" A hemispherical barrier of repulsive force erupted, not to cover the entire field, but to shape the incoming storm, to funnel the cataclysmic energy upward, creating a momentary, narrowing channel in the devastation. Into that channel, Naruto poured everything he had left. He didn't form a Rasengan. He didn't call upon Kurama's cloak. He did something simpler, something fundamental. He thought of every face he'd seen in this world, the little girl under the rubble, the wary students, the tired teachers, the broken heroes, the lost souls in the dark. He thought of their pain, their hope, their stubborn will to keep going. He took a breath, and for the first time in this world, he used the jutsu not of his village, but of his soul. 6 paths, Ultra Big Ball Rasengan. The sphere that formed between his hands was not blue, nor orange. It was gold and black, a spiraling galaxy of light and shadow, of yang and yin, of his own unwavering belief and Sasuke's relentless truth. It was small, no bigger than a beach ball, pitiful compared to the storm it faced. But it was dense. It contained the concentrated ideal of connection with purpose. It was the answer to All for One's philosophy of consumption. Naruto thrust it forward. Sasuke, with a final, grunting push of his Shinra Tensei, directed the funnel of enemy fire directly onto the approaching Rasengan. The collision was not loud. It was an absorption. The galaxy-like Rasengan didn't explode against the storm. It swallowed it. The lasers bent, the ice sublimated, the lightning grounded itself into the swirling energy. The Rasengan grew, not from Naruto's power, but by integrating the stolen, discordant energies of 100 quirks, harmonizing them by force of a stronger, unifying will. All for One's monstrous face contorted in disbelief. "Impossible! That power, it's assimilating my..." The Rasengan, now a swirling titan of pacified energy, reached him. There was no blast wave. No crater. There was a dispersion. The Rasengan engulfed All for One's form and simply unwound it. The stolen quirk energies, now calm and neutral, drifted away like wisps of colored smoke, returning to the atmosphere from which they were once violently taken. The grafted limbs dissolved. The cage of bone crumbled to ash. The monstrous edifice of a century of theft dissolved, leaving only the withered, ancient core of the original man, connected to a failing life support system, lying helpless in the dirt. The silence that followed was absolute. The sky was clear. The oppressive aura was gone. Naruto dropped to his knees, utterly spent, gasping. Sasuke knelt on one knee beside him, breathing heavily, his Rinnegan deactivated. All for One blinked up at the sky, his body unable to move. He wasn't dead. He was empty. For the first time in over a century, he held no power but his own feeble life. He could only whisper. "You didn't win. You just postponed the inevitable. Humanity will always crave power. They will fracture again." Naruto looked at him, not with hatred, but with a profound sadness. "Maybe. But next time, they'll remember there's another option. They'll remember what it felt like to be whole." He turned his back on the ancient villain, his gaze finding the students, the heroes. They were staring, not at the defeated evil, but at him and Sasuke. At the two of them, together. At the evidence that the power they wielded wasn't about domination, but about synergy. About two opposites creating a whole greater than the sum of its parts. Director Kana's voice, finally clear and decisive, came over all official channels. "All for One is neutralized. The immediate threat is over. By the authority vested in me, I am suspending all quirk use restrictions for registered heroes effective immediately, and initiating a full review of the Hero Public Safety Commission's protocols, with public oversight. She paused. We have witnessed a new paradigm today. It is not a replacement for our own. It is a reminder of what we have forgotten. Let us learn from it. It wasn't a revolution. It was a recalibration. The sun, true and unfiltered, broke through the lingering haze and shone down on the broken field, on the exhausted defenders, on the two shinobi from another world. Epilogue 1 month later. Yui was being rebuilt, but the walls would be lower, the barriers more transparent. A new, elective course was being drafted. Interpersonal Dynamics and Conflict Resolution. The first guest lecturer was tentatively scheduled, one Uzumaki Naruto, pending dimensional visa approval. Bakugo was training again, but his explosions were more controlled, their roar containing a hint of thoughtful precision. He'd cornered Midoriya once. That light, you channeled us. Don't get a big head. I was just the most potent part. But there was no venom in it. Acknowledgement, perhaps. Midoriya's arm had healed, the scars now faint, golden lines. He could feel one for all differently, not as a roaring river, but as a deep, resonant well, connected to something wider. He was in daily communication with a retired symbol of peace, comparing notes on legacy, and with a weary Hokage, learning about chakra theory. Todoroki had dinner with his father. They did not speak. The silence, for the first time, was not filled with ice or fire, but with the fragile possibility of something else. Tamura Shigaraki was in a maximum security cell, quirk suppressors inactive. He spent his days staring at the wall, not plotting, but thinking. A single, small potted plant sat on his table, a gift from an anonymous source. He hadn't decayed it yet. And on a cliff overlooking the now sacred Takoba beach, two figures stood. Naruto, his chakra restored, his orange jacket clean and whole. Sasuke, his cloak stirring in the sea breeze. The portal's stable, Sasuke said. We can go home. Naruto looked out at the ocean, at the city beyond. He could feel it. The world was still sick, still fractured. But the fever had broken. The healing had begun. They had planted a seed. A seed of an idea that power could be a bridge, not a wall. They'll be okay, Naruto said, not a question. They have a chance, Sasuke corrected. That's all we ever fought for. A chance. Naruto nodded. He took one last, deep breath of the air of this strange, wounded, beautiful world. Then he turned, and with a flash of golden light, the two shinobi were gone. But they left behind more than legends. They left behind a question, now etched into the soul of a society. What will you build with your power? And for the first time in a long time, the answers were no longer just in a rulebook. They were in every heart that remembered a golden wave on a beach, and the fierce, united light that answered the dark.